The crimson wasteland of Mars stretched endlessly beneath the perpetual rust-colored sky, its ancient surface scarred by millennia of industrial excavation and the relentless expansion of forge complexes that had transformed the planet into the beating heart of the Imperium's technological might. In the early centuries of the 31st millennium, during the height of the Great Crusade, this was a world where the boundaries between flesh and machine had long since blurred into irrelevance. Here, among the towering spires of the Mechanicus and the deep manufactorium complexes that burrowed into the planet's core, a young tech adept named Belisarius Cawl began his journey toward becoming one of the most controversial figures in the Adeptus Mechanicus. The forged temples of Mars hummed with constant activity, their vast halls filled with the rhythmic pounding of massive hammers and the hiss of plasma cutters shaping adamantine into instruments of war. Within these sacred spaces, apprentice tech adepts learned the fundamental mysteries of the Omnissiah, their organic components gradually replaced with superior mechanical alternatives as they progressed through the ranks. The air itself carried the scent of sacred oils, ozone from electrical discharges, and the metallic tang of freshly forged components. It was in this environment that Cawl's early technological philosophy took shape, influenced by the ancient traditions of augmetic enhancement that had defined Martian culture since before the Age of Strife. The Forge world's approach to technological advancement followed strict protocols established over millennia of careful experimentation and religious observance. Every modification to the human form required extensive ritual preparation, blessed components crafted according to ancient standard template construct patterns, and approval from senior magos who had themselves undergone centuries of gradual transformation. The process was methodical, conservative, and deeply rooted in the belief that the Omnissiah's wisdom was best accessed through incremental improvement rather than radical innovation. Young tech adepts like Cawl spent decades mastering the basic principles of mechanical augmentation before being permitted to undergo even minor modifications to their own flesh. Cawl's initial training followed these established patterns, beginning with the most fundamental aspects of Mechanicus doctrine. He learned to recite the canticles of the Omnissiah while his hands worked at delicate assembly tasks, the binary hymns becoming as natural as breathing. His instructors, senior tech adepts whose faces had long since been replaced with sensor arrays and Vox grills, emphasized the importance of understanding each component's sacred function before attempting to improve upon ancient designs. The workshops where Cawl spent his early years were filled with the accumulated wisdom of ages, their walls lined with schematic displays showing the proper construction of everything from simple cogitators to complex servo skulls. The daily routine of a tech adept in training was rigorous and precisely scheduled. Dawn brought the ritual of awakening, where apprentices activated their basic augmetics and performed diagnostic checks on their mechanical components. This was followed by hours of theoretical instruction in the sacred halls, where senior magos delivered lectures on the principles of machine spirits, the proper maintenance of ancient technologies, and the theological implications of human-machine synthesis. Afternoons were devoted to practical work in the manufactorums, where Cawl and his fellow apprentices learned to craft components with their own hands, understanding the sacred relationship between creator and creation that lay at the heart of Mechanicus philosophy. During these formative years, Cawl demonstrated an exceptional aptitude for understanding complex mechanical systems. His instructors noted his ability to visualize the internal workings of devices before disassembling them, and his talent for identifying inefficiencies in established designs. However, it was also during this period that the first signs of his unorthodox thinking began to manifest. Where other apprentices accepted the traditional explanations for why certain procedures were followed, Cawl persistently questioned the underlying assumptions. He would spend hours in the archive vaults, studying ancient texts and technical manuals, searching for the original reasoning behind practices that had become ritualized over time. The quest for knowledge, one of the fundamental drives of the Mechanicus, was supposed to follow carefully prescribed channels. Tech adepts were encouraged to seek understanding, but within the bounds of established doctrine and under the guidance of their superiors. Innovation was permitted, but only after demonstrating complete mastery of existing technologies and receiving approval from the appropriate authorities. Cawl's approach differed significantly from this model. He began conducting unauthorized experiments in unused sections of the forge complex, combining components in ways that violated traditional assembly protocols. His modifications worked, often improving upon the original designs, but they represented a dangerous departure from accepted practice. One particular incident during his early training highlighted the growing tension between Cawl's innovative instincts and Mechanicus orthodoxy. While working on a standard servo skull assembly, he noticed that the traditional power distribution system created unnecessary heat buildup that reduced the unit's operational efficiency. Rather than accepting this as an inherent limitation of the design, Cawl began experimenting with alternative configurations. He rerouted power conduits, modified the cooling systems, and implemented a series of micro-adjustments that dramatically improved the servo skull's performance. When his instructors discovered the modifications, they were simultaneously impressed by his technical skill and concerned by his willingness to deviate from established patterns without authorization. The philosophical implications of Cawl's early experiments extended beyond mere technical innovation. Traditional Mechanicus doctrine held that the machine spirit of each device had to be properly appeased through correct assembly procedures and appropriate ritual observances. By modifying established designs, Cawl was essentially arguing that human understanding could improve upon patterns that had been blessed by centuries of use. This position bordered on technological heresy, suggesting that the accumulated wisdom of the Mechanicus might be incomplete or imperfect. His instructors struggled with how to respond to an apprentice whose modifications clearly worked, but whose methods challenged fundamental assumptions about the relationship between human knowledge and divine inspiration. The Great Crusade era provided a unique context for these early developments in Cawl's thinking. The Imperium's rapid expansion created unprecedented demands for technological innovation, as the Space Marine legions and Imperial Army encountered alien technologies and hostile environments that required adaptive solutions. The traditional Mechanicus approach of slow, careful development was often inadequate for the pace of conquest, leading to increased pressure for rapid innovation. This environment provided some justification for Cawl's experimental methods, even as it created tension with established Mechanicus hierarchies who were reluctant to abandon practices that had served them well for millennia. Cawl's exposure to the broader Imperial war effort began to influence his understanding of the relationship between biological and mechanical systems. The Space Marines represented the pinnacle of biological enhancement, their gene seed modifications allowing them to interface seamlessly with their power armor and weapon systems. The Imperial Guard demonstrated the effectiveness of augmetic replacements for soldiers who had suffered battlefield injuries, while the Mechanicus itself showcased the potential for voluntary replacement of organic components with superior mechanical alternatives. These different approaches to human enhancement fascinated Cawl, who began to see opportunities for synthesis that went beyond the traditional boundaries of each discipline. The young tech adept's observations of battlefield casualties brought back to Mars for treatment provided particular insight into the limitations of current augmetic technology. Standard replacement limbs, while functional, often failed to fully integrate with the recipient's nervous system, creating delays in response time and reduced tactile feedback. Sensory replacements frequently suffered from limited range and poor discrimination compared to their organic counterparts. Most significantly, the interface between biological and mechanical components remained crude, relying on basic neural connections that failed to take advantage of the brain's remarkable adaptability. Cawl began to envision more sophisticated approaches to human-machine integration that would preserve the strengths of both biological and mechanical systems while eliminating their respective weaknesses. These early insights would prove foundational to Cawl's later revolutionary work, but during his apprenticeship, they remained largely theoretical. The Mechanicus hierarchy was deeply conservative regarding modifications to established augmetic procedures, and unauthorized experimentation on living subjects was strictly forbidden. Cawl was forced to limit his investigations to theoretical modeling and small-scale component testing, always careful to avoid attracting too much attention from his superiors. He learned to present his ideas in terms that emphasized their adherence to Mechanicus doctrine, while quietly pursuing research that pushed the boundaries of acceptable practice. The Forge complex, where Cawl completed his training, was typical of Martian industrial installations, a sprawling network of interconnected facilities that extended both above and below the planet's surface. The upper levels housed the primary manufacturing equipment, massive machines capable of producing everything from individual bolter rounds to complete Titan chassis. Below ground, specialized workshops focused on precision work, creating the delicate components that formed the hearts of cogitators, auspex arrays, and other sophisticated devices. The deepest levels contained the most sacred spaces, where ancient SDCs were housed, and the most senior magos conducted their most sensitive research. Cawl's access to these different levels of the Forge complex expanded gradually as he progressed through his training. Each new area revealed additional layers of complexity in Mechanicus operations, from the basic assembly work performed by servitors and junior apprentices to the highly classified projects that occupied the attention of the most senior tech priests. This exposure to the full spectrum of Mechanicus activity provided Cawl with a comprehensive understanding of how the organization functioned, knowledge that would prove invaluable in his later efforts to implement large-scale innovations while navigating the complex political dynamics of the Adeptus Mechanicus. The social structure of the Forge complex reflected the broader hierarchies of Martian society, with clear distinctions between different ranks and specializations. Senior magos occupied the highest positions, their extensive augmentations marking them as individuals who had progressed far along the path toward unity with the Omnissiah. Below them, various grades of tech priests managed specific aspects of production and research, while tech adepts like Cawl handled the detailed implementation of their directives. At the bottom of the hierarchy, servitors and other heavily modified individuals performed routine tasks under constant supervision. This rigid structure was designed to ensure that knowledge and authority flowed through appropriate channels, preventing unauthorized innovation while maintaining the quality standards that had made Martian technology legendary throughout the galaxy. The carefully ordered world of Martian orthodoxy shattered when news of Horus's betrayal reached the Forge complexes of the Red Planet. The initial report seemed impossible to comprehend. The War Master, the Emperor's most favored son, had turned against his father and declared war upon the Imperium itself. For the tech priests of Mars, whose entire existence revolved around logical analysis and systematic understanding, the concept of such a fundamental betrayal challenged their ability to process information rationally. Within hours of the first confirmed transmissions from Istvan III, the Forge worlds began to experience unprecedented disruptions as different factions within the Mechanicus struggled to determine their response to the unfolding crisis. Cawl's position during these early days of confusion placed him in a unique vantage point to observe the fracturing of Martian society. As a mid-level tech adept with access to multiple Forge complexes through his research assignments, he witnessed firsthand how the heresy's revelation created immediate divisions among his colleagues. Senior magos who had worked together for centuries suddenly found themselves on opposite sides of heated theological debates about loyalty, duty, and the true nature of the Omnissiah's will. The binary cant that had once carried routine technical discussions now crackled with accusations of heresy and counter-accusations of blind adherence to a failing system. The fabricator General Kelber, Hal's gradual alignment with Horus-created seismic shifts throughout the Mechanicus hierarchy. Those Forge complexes that had enjoyed close relationships with Hal's administration found themselves under intense scrutiny from loyalist elements, while previously marginalized factions began asserting their own interpretations of Mechanicus doctrine. Cawl observed these political machinations with the analytical mindset that characterized his approach to technical problems, recognizing that the schism represented both an unprecedented crisis and an opportunity for those willing to navigate its complexities carefully. The first concrete evidence of technological corruption emerged from forge complexes that had declared for Horus. Reports filtered back to loyalist installations describing modifications to standard equipment that violated fundamental principles of machine spirit appeasement. Weapons systems were being enhanced with components that generated unnatural energy signatures, while augmetic devices displayed behavioral patterns that suggested contamination by malevolent influences. These accounts initially met with skepticism from Orthodox tech priests who found it difficult to believe that their colleagues would deliberately corrupt sacred technology, but the mounting evidence eventually forced even the most conservative elements to acknowledge that something unprecedented was occurring within the ranks of the traitor Mechanicus. Cawl's first direct encounter with corrupted technology came during a routine inspection of equipment recovered from a fallen forge complex on Lucius. The facility had declared for Horus early in the conflict, and its subsequent destruction by loyalist forces had left behind scattered examples of their modified designs. The inspection team, led by Magos Dominus Zerath, was tasked with analyzing these artifacts to understand the nature of the technological heresy that had infected the traitor installations. What they discovered challenged every assumption about the relationship between machine spirits and their physical components. The corrupted devices exhibited characteristics that defied conventional understanding of how technology functioned. Power armor systems displayed autonomous behaviors that went far beyond their programmed parameters, while weapons appeared to actively seek targets rather than simply responding to their operators' commands. Most disturbing were the augmetic components, which showed signs of organic growth patterns that suggested some form of biological contamination. The machine spirits within these devices seemed to have been replaced or corrupted by entities that displayed distinctly malevolent intentions, turning sacred technology into instruments of spiritual as well as physical warfare. The analysis process required extreme caution, as several members of the inspection team reported experiencing disturbing visions and auditory hallucinations when in close proximity to the corrupted artifacts. Standard containment protocols proved inadequate for dealing with technology that seemed to actively resist examination, and the team was forced to develop new procedures for handling equipment that appeared to possess a form of malevolent consciousness. Cawl's role in developing these protocols demonstrated his ability to adapt quickly to unprecedented challenges, but it also exposed him to influences that would profoundly affect his future understanding of the relationship between technology and the immaterial realm. The philosophical implications of corrupted technology forced Cawl to reconsider fundamental assumptions about the nature of machine spirits and their relationship to the Omnissiah. Traditional Mechanicus doctrine held that properly constructed and blessed technology contained benevolent machine spirits that facilitated its function and protected it from harmful influences. The existence of corrupted devices suggested that these spiritual entities could be displaced or subverted by hostile forces, raising disturbing questions about the security of all Mechanicus technology. If the machine spirits themselves could be corrupted, then the entire foundation of Martian technological practice was potentially vulnerable to subversion. The Dark Mechanicum's innovations went far beyond simple corruption of existing designs. Intelligence reports from loyalist agents embedded within traitor forge complexes described entirely new categories of technology that incorporated principles that violated established scientific understanding. Weapons that drew power from sources that could not be identified or measured, vehicles that moved without visible propulsion systems, and communication devices that transmitted information across impossible distances without any detectable medium. These innovations suggested that the traitor Mechanicus had gained access to knowledge that transcended the limitations of conventional physics, but at a cost that seemed to involve the complete abandonment of traditional safety protocols and ethical constraints. Cawl's analysis of captured Dark Mechanicum technology revealed systematic patterns in their modifications that suggested a coherent alternative approach to technological development. Rather than working within the established framework of machine spirit appeasement and gradual augmentation, the traitor tech priests appeared to be forcing rapid changes through the application of external influences that bypassed normal compatibility requirements. The results were undeniably effective in terms of raw performance, but they came with side effects that included unpredictable behavior, rapid degradation of components, and what could only be described as psychological contamination of their operators. The moral implications of studying corrupted technology created intense debates within loyalist Mechanicus circles. Conservative elements argued that any examination of heretical innovations risked spiritual contamination and should be avoided entirely. More pragmatic voices, including Cawl, maintained that understanding the enemy's capabilities was essential for developing effective countermeasures and protecting loyal imperial forces from these new threats. The compromise position that eventually emerged involved establishing specialized research facilities with extensive containment measures and rotating research teams to minimize individual exposure to corrupting influences. Cawl's involvement in these research projects established his reputation as someone willing to take necessary risks in pursuit of knowledge that could benefit the loyalist cause. His technical skills and analytical approach made him valuable for understanding how corrupted technology functioned, while his relative junior status meant that his potential loss to corruption would be less damaging to the overall Mechanicus hierarchy. This combination of factors led to his assignment to increasingly sensitive projects that exposed him to the full range of dark Mechanicum innovations and their underlying principles. The psychological impact of prolonged exposure to corrupted technology began to manifest in subtle changes to Cawl's thinking and methodology. Traditional Mechanicus approaches to innovation emphasized careful, incremental progress that maintained harmony between all components of a system. The Dark Mechanicum's techniques demonstrated that rapid, dramatic improvements were possible if one was willing to accept certain risks and abandon conventional safety margins. While Cawl never embraced the spiritual corruption that characterized traitor technology, he began to question whether loyalist innovation was unnecessarily constrained by overly conservative approaches to risk management. The Siege of Mars itself provided Cawl with direct combat experience against Dark Mechanicum forces and their corrupted war machines. The traitor assault on the Red Planet brought together the most advanced technologies from both sides of the schism, creating a testing ground for innovations that had been developed in secret workshops throughout the galaxy. Loyalist defenders found themselves facing weapons and vehicles that operated according to principles that defied conventional understanding, while the attackers encountered defensive systems that had been rapidly modified to counter their exotic capabilities. During the siege, Cawl was assigned to a rapid response team tasked with analyzing and countering new traitor technologies as they appeared on the battlefield. This role required him to work under extreme pressure, developing countermeasures for weapon systems while under direct fire from the very devices he was trying to understand. The experience taught him valuable lessons about the practical limitations of theoretical analysis and the importance of designing systems that could be quickly modified in response to changing battlefield conditions. The most significant encounter occurred during the assault on the Mondus Gamma Forge complex, where Dark Mechanicum forces deployed a new class of corrupted Titan that incorporated organic components into its structure. The machine displayed capabilities that exceeded anything in the Loyalist arsenal, including the ability to regenerate damaged sections and adapt its weapon systems in real time to counter defensive measures. Cawl's analysis of the creature's remains after its eventual destruction revealed integration techniques that suggested possibilities for beneficial augmentation that went far beyond current Mechanicus practices, albeit without the spiritual corruption that characterized the traitor version. The trauma of witnessing the systematic corruption of sacred technology profoundly affected Cawl's future approach to innovation. He recognized that the conservative nature of traditional Mechanicus practices had left loyalist forces unprepared for the rapid technological advances demonstrated by their traitorous colleagues. The Dark Mechanicum's willingness to experiment with dangerous techniques had given them significant advantages in the early stages of the conflict, advantages that loyalist forces had struggled to counter using conventional methods. This realization convinced Cawl that the Mechanicus needed to develop new approaches to innovation that could match the pace of their enemies without succumbing to the same corrupting influences. The philosophical framework that emerged from these experiences emphasized the importance of controlled experimentation and calculated risk-taking in the pursuit of technological advancement. Cawl began to develop methodologies that incorporated lessons learned from studying corrupted technology while maintaining safeguards against spiritual contamination. His approach involved systematic testing of modifications under controlled conditions, careful monitoring for signs of unwanted side effects, and the development of containment procedures that could isolate dangerous innovations until their safety could be verified. The network of contacts that Cawl established during the heresy included both orthodox Mechanicus researchers and more radical elements who shared his conviction that traditional approaches were inadequate for the challenges facing the Imperium. These relationships provided him with access to resources and knowledge that would prove essential for his later projects, while also creating obligations and dependencies that would influence his future decisions. The collaborative research efforts that emerged from these connections operated in a gray area between authorized Mechanicus activities and unauthorized experimentation, requiring careful navigation of political and theological sensitivities. The final years of the Horus Heresy brought unexpected visitors to the forge complexes of Mars, as surviving Primarchs sought technological solutions to problems that conventional warfare had failed to resolve. Among these was Roboute Guilliman, the Lord of Ultramar, whose arrival at the Mondus Gamma facility in the closing months of the Civil War marked a turning point in Cawl's career. The Primarch's presence on Mars was officially recorded as a routine inspection of loyalist manufacturing capabilities, but the reality was far more complex. Guilliman had come seeking something that the Adeptus Mechanicus had never been asked to provide: improvements to the Emperor's own work on the Astartes project. Cawl first encountered the Lord of Ultramar during a routine briefing on adaptive technology protocols that had been developed in response to Dark Mechanicum innovations. The tech adept was presenting his analysis of captured traitor equipment when Guilliman entered the chamber, his massive frame dominating the space despite the high ceilings designed to accommodate Titan components. The Primarch's presence was immediately apparent not just through his physical dimensions, but through the subtle changes in behavior exhibited by every tech priest in the room. Even the most senior magos deferred to his authority with an instinctive recognition of his genetic superiority that transcended normal hierarchical protocols. The briefing itself focused on technical specifications and battlefield applications, but Cawl noticed that Guilliman's questions revealed an understanding of augmentation principles that went far beyond what most non-Mechanicus personnel possessed. The Primarch inquired about compatibility matrices between different enhancement systems, the theoretical limits of biological modification, and the potential for combining Astartes' gene seed with advanced augmetic technologies. These were not the questions of someone seeking conventional military equipment, but rather those of an individual contemplating fundamental changes to established biological systems. Following the formal presentation, Guilliman requested a private consultation with selected members of the research team. Cawl found himself included in this smaller group, along with Magos Dominus Zerath and two other senior tech priests who had demonstrated expertise in biological augmentation systems. The meeting location was a secured chamber deep within the forge complex, its walls lined with cogitator banks and holographic projection systems that could display molecular-level schematics with perfect clarity. The chamber's isolation systems ensured that their conversation would remain completely confidential, protected from both electronic surveillance and psychic intrusion. Guilliman's opening statement challenged every assumption that the assembled tech priests held about the limits of their mandate. The Primarch explained that the heresy had revealed fundamental weaknesses in the Astartes design that threatened the long-term survival of the Imperium. The traitor legions had demonstrated that even the most carefully selected and indoctrinated Space Marines could fall to corruption, while the loyalist forces had suffered casualties that would take centuries to replace using conventional recruitment methods. The Emperor's original vision for the Astartes had been based on assumptions about the nature of the galaxy that the heresy had proven incorrect, and adaptation was necessary for survival. The specific improvements that Guilliman envisioned went far beyond simple modifications to existing systems. He spoke of creating new organs that could better resist psychic influence, enhanced neural pathways that would improve reaction times and tactical processing, and modified gene seed that could be implanted in a broader range of human subjects without rejection. Most significantly, he wanted these improvements to be implemented in ways that would make the resulting Astartes more resistant to the corrupting influences that had claimed so many of their brothers during the Civil War. Cawl's initial reaction was one of professional skepticism mixed with intellectual fascination. The Emperor's work on the Astartes project represented the pinnacle of biological engineering, incorporating techniques that the Mechanicus had studied for centuries without fully understanding. The idea that this masterwork could be improved upon seemed to border on hubris, yet the practical evidence of the heresy suggested that such improvements were not just desirable, but essential. The challenge lay in developing modifications that would enhance the Astartes design without disrupting the delicate balance of systems that made Space Marines functional. The theoretical framework for such improvements required a fundamental reconsideration of how biological and mechanical augmentation could be integrated. Traditional Mechanicus approaches treated organic and artificial components as separate systems that could be connected through interface technologies. Guilliman's vision demanded a more sophisticated synthesis that would blur the boundaries between natural and artificial enhancement, creating hybrid systems that combine the adaptability of biological processes with the reliability of mechanical components. The Primarch's knowledge of his father's work provided crucial insights into the underlying principles of Astartes enhancement. He revealed details about the gene seed cultivation process that were not recorded in any Mechanicus archives, including information about the psychic resonances that linked each Space Marine to his Primarch, and through him, to the Emperor himself. This spiritual dimension of Astartes enhancement had been largely overlooked by previous Mechanicus studies, which had focused primarily on the physical and genetic aspects of the transformation process. Guilliman's commission included specific requirements that would guide Cawl's research for the next 10 millennia. The improved Astartes would need to be capable of rapid deployment and adaptation to new battlefield conditions, with enhanced healing capabilities that could repair damage from exotic weapons. Their psychological conditioning would require strengthening to resist not just conventional corruption, but also the more subtle influences that had proven effective against existing Space Marines. Most importantly, the new design would need to be scalable, allowing for the creation of larger numbers of enhanced Astartes without compromising their individual effectiveness. The practical challenges of implementing such improvements were staggering in their complexity. Each modification to the Astartes template would require extensive testing to ensure compatibility with existing systems, while the development of entirely new organs would demand research into biological processes that pushed the boundaries of current scientific understanding. The project would need to be conducted in absolute secrecy, as knowledge of attempts to improve upon the Emperor's work could be interpreted as heretical by conservative elements within both the Mechanicus and the broader Imperium. Cawl's acceptance of the commission marked a fundamental shift in his research priorities and philosophical approach. The project would require him to move beyond the incremental improvements that characterized traditional Mechanicus innovation and embrace a more radical methodology that combined theoretical research with practical experimentation. The scale of the undertaking would demand resources and expertise that exceeded what any single forge complex could provide, necessitating the creation of a distributed research network that could operate across multiple installations without attracting unwanted attention. The establishment of this research network began immediately following Guilliman's departure from Mars. Cawl identified potential collaborators among the tech priests who had demonstrated both the technical expertise and the ideological flexibility necessary for such an unprecedented project. These individuals were recruited carefully, with each being approached through indirect channels that minimized the risk of exposure. The initial core group consisted of specialists in genetics, augmetic integration, psychic shielding, and biological engineering, each bringing unique capabilities that would be essential for different aspects of the research. The first hidden research facility was established in an abandoned section of the Mondus Gamma complex, utilizing chambers that had been damaged during the siege and subsequently written off as irreparable. Cawl's team spent months preparing these spaces for their new purpose, installing specialized equipment and implementing security measures that would prevent unauthorized access while maintaining the appearance of continued abandonment. The facility's isolation systems were designed to contain not just physical materials, but also psychic emanations that might attract unwanted attention from hostile entities. The recruitment of loyal tech adepts for the project required careful evaluation of both technical qualifications and personal reliability. Cawl developed screening procedures that assessed candidates' ability to work independently while maintaining absolute secrecy about their activities. The selected individuals were gradually introduced to different aspects of the research without initially revealing the project's full scope, allowing them to demonstrate their commitment before being granted access to the most sensitive information. This approach minimized the risk of security breaches while ensuring that the team consisted of individuals who could be trusted with knowledge that could reshape the Imperium's military capabilities. The early theoretical frameworks developed by Cawl's team focused on identifying the specific limitations of current Astartes enhancement that needed to be addressed. The standard implementation process was constrained by the narrow age range of suitable candidates, the high rejection rates that eliminated many potential recruits, and the fixed nature of the resulting enhancements that prevented adaptation to new threats. The research team began developing conceptual models for modifications that would address each of these limitations while maintaining the essential characteristics that made Space Marines effective warriors. The genetic analysis component of the project required access to pure gene seed samples from multiple Legion lineages, a resource that was extremely difficult to obtain through official channels. Cawl established covert relationships with apothecaries from various chapters who were willing to provide small quantities of genetic material in exchange for access to advanced medical technologies. These samples allowed the research team to conduct comparative studies that revealed the underlying mechanisms responsible for the differences between various Astartes lineages, providing crucial insights into how the enhancement process could be modified. The development of new organ systems required extensive theoretical modeling before any physical experimentation could begin. Cawl's team created detailed simulations of how proposed modifications would interact with existing Astartes physiology, identifying potential complications and developing solutions for integration challenges. The complexity of these interactions demanded computational resources that exceeded what was available at the primary research facility, leading to the establishment of additional sites that could provide the necessary processing power while maintaining operational security. The psychic shielding research proved particularly challenging, as it required understanding of warp-based phenomena that fell outside traditional Mechanicus expertise. Cawl established connections with sanctioned psychers and members of the nascent Inquisition who could provide insights into the nature of psychic corruption and the development of countermeasures. This collaboration required careful negotiation to ensure that the research team's activities remained secret while gaining access to knowledge that was essential for creating Astartes who could resist the influences that had corrupted their predecessors. The project's scope expanded rapidly as the research team identified additional areas where improvements could be implemented. Enhanced sensory systems that could detect threats across a broader spectrum, improved cognitive processing that would allow for faster tactical decision-making, and modified digestive systems that could extract nutrients from a wider range of sources all became part of the comprehensive enhancement package that Cawl envisioned. Each addition increased the complexity of the integration challenge, while also expanding the potential capabilities of the resulting Astartes. The establishment of manufacturing capabilities for prototype components required the creation of specialized production facilities that could operate without official oversight. Cawl identified underutilized sections of various forge complexes where small-scale manufacturing could be conducted using equipment that was officially assigned to other projects. The production of test components was integrated into routine manufacturing schedules in ways that made them appear to be standard maintenance activities or research into conventional augmetic improvements. The documentation and record keeping for the project required the development of new information security protocols that could protect sensitive data while allowing for effective collaboration between distributed research teams. Cawl created encoding systems that disguised research findings as routine technical reports, while establishing communication networks that could transfer information between facilities without creating detectable patterns that might attract investigation. The challenge of maintaining comprehensive records while ensuring operational security would remain a constant concern throughout the project's development. The decades following Guilliman's commission transformed Cawl from a talented but relatively minor tech adept into the architect of the most extensive covert research operation in Imperial history. The initial facility beneath Mondus Gamma proved inadequate within the first century of work, as the scope of required experimentation expanded beyond anything that could be contained within a single installation. Cawl began establishing a network of hidden laboratories that stretched across multiple star systems, each facility designed to conduct specific aspects of the research, while maintaining plausible cover identities that would deflect casual investigation. The primary genetic research station was constructed within the asteroid belt of the Risa system, housed inside a hollowed-out asteroid that appeared to be a routine mining operation. The facility's exterior bristled with standard excavation equipment and ore processing machinery, while deep within its core lay laboratories equipped with the most advanced gene sequencing and biological manipulation equipment that Cawl could acquire. The asteroid's natural radiation shielding provided excellent protection against both physical and psychic detection, while its remote location allowed for experiments that would have been impossible to conduct near populated worlds. Cawl's own transformation accelerated dramatically during this period, driven by the demands of managing an increasingly complex research operation across vast distances. Traditional augmetic enhancement followed predictable patterns of gradual replacement and integration, but Cawl's modifications pushed far beyond these conventional boundaries. He began experimenting with consciousness fragmentation techniques that allowed portions of his awareness to operate independently while maintaining connection to his primary consciousness. These fragmented aspects could oversee different research projects simultaneously, dramatically increasing his effective capacity for direct supervision and analysis. The physical modifications to Cawl's form became increasingly radical as the centuries progressed. Standard mechadendrite appendages were replaced with specialized manipulator arrays that could perform molecular-level assembly work with unprecedented precision. His sensory systems were enhanced with detection capabilities that spanned multiple spectrums, allowing him to observe biological processes at the cellular level while simultaneously monitoring psychic emanations and warp disturbances. Most significantly, his memory storage capacity was expanded through the integration of quantum cogitator arrays that could process and retain vast quantities of experimental data without degradation. The consciousness fragmentation process required careful calibration to prevent the kind of mental dissolution that had claimed other tech priests who had attempted similar procedures. Cawl developed specialized neural interface protocols that maintained synchronization between his various consciousness fragments, while allowing each to operate with sufficient independence to handle complex research tasks. The fragments were assigned specific areas of expertise, with one focusing on genetic manipulation, another on mechanical integration, and a third on psychic shielding research. This distribution of cognitive load allowed Cawl to maintain direct oversight of multiple research streams while preserving the unity of purpose that was essential for the project's success. The establishment of additional research facilities followed patterns that were designed to avoid detection by imperial authorities while providing access to the resources necessary for advanced biological research. A facility on Lucius was disguised as a standard augmetic production center, its true purpose hidden behind the manufacture of conventional replacement limbs and sensory organs. The Lucius installation specialized in the development of new organ systems, utilizing the Forge world's extensive biological research infrastructure while maintaining careful separation between authorized and unauthorized activities. On Metalica, Cawl established a weapons testing facility that ostensibly focused on improving standard Astartes equipment, but actually served as a proving ground for the enhanced capabilities that would be required by the new generation of Space Marines. The facility's location within an active war zone provided excellent cover for unusual energy signatures and weapons discharges, while the constant flow of damaged equipment for repair created opportunities to study how existing Astartes enhancement interacted with various forms of battlefield stress. The systematic study of Astartes' gene seed required access to samples from all known Legion lineages, a challenge that demanded careful cultivation of relationships with chapter apothecaries and senior medical personnel throughout the Imperium. Cawl developed a network of contacts who provided genetic material in exchange for advanced medical technologies and augmetic improvements that enhanced their ability to serve their respective chapters. These relationships were carefully managed to avoid creating patterns that might suggest coordinated activity, with each contact believing they were participating in isolated research projects rather than contributing to a galaxy-spanning investigation. The acquisition of supposedly lost Legion genetic material proved particularly challenging and controversial, even within Cawl's secretive research network. Samples from the 2nd and 11th Legions were obtained through archaeological expeditions to sites that had been officially purged from Imperial records, requiring extensive investigation to locate facilities that had been abandoned and forgotten during the early years of the Great Crusade. The genetic material recovered from these sites was heavily degraded and required extensive reconstruction using advanced techniques that Cawl had developed specifically for working with damaged biological samples. More problematic was the acquisition of gene seed from the traitor legions, materials that were officially considered irredeemably corrupted and subject to immediate destruction if discovered. Cawl's research teams conducted careful analysis of battlefield sites where traitor Astartes had fallen, extracting genetic material from remains that had been overlooked by official recovery efforts. The samples required extensive purification to remove chaos contamination while preserving the underlying genetic structure that had made these legions effective before their fall to corruption. The study of traitor gene seed revealed disturbing insights into the mechanisms of chaos corruption and the vulnerabilities that had made certain legions more susceptible to influence than others. The World Eater's gene seed showed evidence of pre-existing neurological instabilities that had been exacerbated by the Butcher's nails, while the Emperor's children displayed genetic markers associated with heightened sensory sensitivity that had made them vulnerable to Slaaneshi influence. Most significantly, the Word-Bearer's genetic material contained subtle modifications that enhanced psychic receptivity, changes that appeared to have been introduced deliberately rather than emerging through natural mutation. The development of new technologies and equipment proceeded along multiple parallel tracks, with different research teams focusing on specific aspects of the enhanced Astartes design. The creation of improved power armor required advances in materials science that pushed beyond the capabilities of standard Imperial technology. Cawl's materials research teams developed new ceramic composites that offered superior protection while reducing weight, along with improved joint systems that provided greater mobility without sacrificing structural integrity. The enhanced weapon systems designed for the new Astartes incorporated targeting technologies that interfaced directly with the user's nervous system, providing accuracy improvements that exceeded what was possible with conventional aiming systems. The bolt weapons featured improved ammunition designs that could adapt their explosive characteristics based on target analysis, while plasma weapons incorporated new cooling systems that dramatically reduced the risk of catastrophic overheating that plagued existing designs. The development of new vehicle designs focused on creating platforms that could take advantage of the enhanced capabilities of the improved Astartes, while providing the tactical flexibility that modern warfare demanded. The vehicles incorporated advanced targeting systems that could coordinate with multiple units simultaneously, along with improved armor systems that offered protection against the exotic weapons that had become increasingly common on Imperial battlefields. The research into psychic shielding technologies required collaboration with sanctioned psychers and members of the nascent Inquisition, relationships that Cawl cultivated carefully to avoid revealing the true scope of his research. The development of new psychic hood designs incorporated crystalline matrices that could channel and redirect psychic energy more effectively than existing systems, while neural interface improvements allowed for more precise control of psychic abilities without the feedback problems that affected many existing designs. The creation of enhanced medical systems focused on developing technologies that could support the increased metabolic demands of the improved Astartes, while providing rapid healing capabilities that exceeded what was possible with standard Astartes physiology. The new medical systems incorporated nanotechnology that could perform cellular repairs at the molecular level, along with improved diagnostic capabilities that could detect and counter biological and chemical threats before they could cause significant damage. The testing and validation of new technologies required the creation of specialized testing facilities that could simulate battlefield conditions while maintaining the security necessary to prevent discovery. Cawl established testing ranges on remote worlds where prototype equipment could be evaluated under realistic conditions, with the facilities disguised as routine military training installations or resource extraction operations. The development of new manufacturing techniques focused on creating production methods that could fabricate the complex components required for enhanced Astartes equipment while maintaining the quality standards necessary for reliable operation. The manufacturing systems incorporated advanced automation that could produce components with tolerances that exceeded what was possible with conventional fabrication methods, while quality control systems ensured that each component met the exacting specifications required for integration with enhanced Astartes physiology. The establishment of supply chains for exotic materials required careful coordination with mining operations and trading networks throughout the Imperium, with Cawl's agents working to secure access to rare elements and compounds without creating patterns that might attract investigation. The supply operations were disguised as routine procurement activities for conventional research projects, with the true purpose of the materials hidden through careful documentation and routing procedures. The recruitment and training of additional research personnel required the development of screening procedures that could identify individuals with both the technical expertise and the psychological resilience necessary for long-term involvement in highly classified research. The recruitment process was conducted through multiple layers of intermediaries to prevent direct connections between new personnel and the project's leadership, while training programs were designed to gradually introduce new team members to increasingly sensitive aspects of the research. The development of advanced computational systems required the creation of cogitator networks that could process the vast quantities of data generated by the research while maintaining security against both physical and psychic intrusion. The computational systems incorporated quantum processing elements that could perform complex biological simulations in real time, while security protocols ensured that sensitive information remained protected even if individual components were compromised. The coordination of activities across multiple research facilities required the development of communication systems that could transfer information securely across interstellar distances without creating detectable patterns that might attract investigation. The communication networks utilized quantum entanglement principles to provide instantaneous data transfer, while encryption systems ensured that intercepted transmissions would appear to be routine administrative communications rather than sensitive research data. The breakthrough that would define the next phase of Cawl's research emerged from an unexpected convergence of seemingly unrelated experimental threads in the early 39th millennium. His consciousness fragments had been pursuing parallel investigations into cellular regeneration enhancement, neural pathway optimization, and metabolic efficiency improvements when a routine data correlation analysis revealed patterns that suggested these separate research streams could be integrated into a cohesive enhancement package. The discovery occurred at the Risa asteroid facility, where advanced gene sequencing equipment had been analyzing samples from 17 different Legion lineages simultaneously, creating computational models that mapped the interaction patterns between various genetic modifications. The initial revelation centered on the discovery of dormant genetic sequences within existing Astartes gene seed that appeared to be designed for additional organ systems beyond the standard 19 implants. These sequences had remained inactive in all known Space Marines, but Cawl's analysis suggested they could be triggered through specific biochemical cascades that would initiate the development of entirely new enhancement organs. The genetic code contained what appeared to be blueprints for 3 additional organs, each designed to address specific limitations that had become apparent through millennia of Astartes combat deployment across increasingly diverse and dangerous battlefield environments. The first of these dormant organ systems, which Cawl designated the sinew coils, represented a revolutionary advancement in the integration between Astartes physiology and power armor systems. Traditional power armor relied on mechanical servo motors and actuators to amplify the wearer's strength and movement, creating a system that was powerful but relatively crude in its responsiveness. The sinew coils consisted of synthetic muscle fiber bundles that could be implanted along the major muscle groups, creating a biological interface that could respond to neural commands with far greater precision and speed than mechanical systems. The synthetic muscle fibers incorporated advanced polymer chains that could contract and expand with forces that exceeded natural muscle tissue by orders of magnitude, while maintaining the flexibility and responsiveness that characterized biological systems. The fibers were designed to integrate directly with the Astartes nervous system through specialized neural interface nodes that could process movement commands at the speed of thought. Unlike mechanical power armor systems that required conscious activation and control, the sinew coils would respond automatically to the wearer's intended movements, creating a seamless integration between biological intention and mechanical execution. The installation process for the sinew coils required careful surgical placement along existing muscle groups, with the synthetic fibers being woven through natural tissue in patterns that would distribute stress loads evenly while maintaining full range of motion. The procedure demanded precision that exceeded conventional surgical techniques, requiring the development of specialized micro-manipulator arrays that could work at the cellular level to ensure proper integration. The healing process involved the gradual formation of neural connections between the synthetic fibers and the recipient's existing nervous system, a process that typically required several months of careful monitoring and adjustment. The second organ system, designated the Magnificat, addressed the fundamental limitations of the Astartes osmodula and biscopia organs that controlled bone and muscle development. While these existing organs provided impressive enhancements to physical strength and durability, they were constrained by the basic architecture of human skeletal and muscular systems. The Magnificat functioned as a secondary growth regulation system that could trigger additional development phases throughout the enhanced Astartes' operational lifetime, allowing for continued physical improvement and adaptation to specific combat requirements. The Magnificat operated through the controlled release of specialized growth hormones and genetic activation compounds that could stimulate targeted development of specific physical systems. Unlike the Osmodula's broad enhancement of overall bone density and structure, the Magnificat could direct precise modifications to individual bones or muscle groups based on analysis of combat stress patterns and operational requirements. And Astartes who frequently engaged in close combat would experience enhanced development of arm and shoulder musculature, while those specializing in marksmanship would see improvements in visual acuity and fine motor control systems. The organ's most remarkable capability involved its ability to adapt to environmental stresses that exceeded normal Astartes tolerances. Extended operations in high-gravity environments would trigger skeletal reinforcement protocols that could increase bone density and muscle mass to compensate for increased physical demands. Exposure to toxic atmospheres would stimulate improvements to respiratory and filtration systems, while prolonged exposure to radiation would enhance cellular repair mechanisms and immune system responses. These adaptations occurred gradually over periods of months or years, allowing the enhanced Astartes to become increasingly effective in their specific operational environment. The third organ system, the Belisarian furnace, represented Cawl's most ambitious attempt to address the metabolic limitations that constrained Astartes' operational endurance. Traditional Space Marine physiology, while remarkably efficient, still required regular rest periods and nutritional intake to maintain peak performance. The Belisarian furnace functioned as an auxiliary power generation system that could sustain enhanced Astartes through extended operations that would exhaust conventional Space Marines. The furnace operated by converting stored body fat and muscle tissue into usable energy through advanced metabolic processes that exceeded the efficiency of normal cellular respiration. The organ incorporated specialized chambers lined with modified mitochondrial structures that could process organic compounds at accelerated rates while generating minimal waste heat. During periods of extreme exertion or extended combat operations, the furnace could provide energy directly to critical systems, allowing the enhanced Astartes to maintain peak performance for days or even weeks without rest or conventional nutrition. The energy conversion process involved the breakdown of complex organic molecules into their component atoms, with the resulting energy being channeled directly into the enhanced Astartes' nervous and muscular systems. The furnace could prioritize energy distribution based on immediate operational requirements, providing additional power to sensory systems during reconnaissance missions, or channeling energy to combat reflexes during active engagement. The organ's efficiency was such that it could sustain an enhanced Astartes through combat operations that would require conventional Space Marines to rotate out for rest and resupply. The development of these organ systems required extensive testing to ensure compatibility with existing Astartes physiology and to identify potential complications that could arise from their integration. Cawl's research teams conducted thousands of simulations using advanced biological modeling systems before beginning physical testing on specially prepared organic substrates. The testing process revealed numerous integration challenges that required modifications to both the new organs and the surgical procedures used for their implantation. The creation of power armor systems capable of interfacing with the enhanced Astartes physiology demanded fundamental advances in materials science and mechanical engineering. The Mark X power armor incorporated flexible interface systems that could adapt to the varying physical characteristics of enhanced Astartes as their bodies continued to develop and adapt. The armor's internal structure featured modular components that could be reconfigured based on the wearer's specific enhancement profile, while advanced sensor systems monitored the integration between biological and mechanical systems to optimize performance. The armor's power distribution systems were completely redesigned to take advantage of the enhanced energy generation capabilities provided by the Belisarian furnace. Traditional power armor relied on external power sources that limited operational duration and created vulnerabilities that enemies could exploit. The Mark X armor could draw supplemental power directly from the wearer's enhanced metabolism, extending operational duration while reducing dependence on external power sources. The integration was so complete that the armor essentially became an extension of the enhanced Astartes body rather than simply protective equipment. The development of new weapon systems proceeded in parallel with the armor enhancements, focusing on creating firearms that could take advantage of the improved accuracy and reaction times provided by the enhanced Astartes physiology. The call pattern bolt weapons incorporated targeting systems that interfaced directly with the user's enhanced nervous system, providing accuracy improvements that exceeded what was possible with conventional aiming methods. The weapons featured adaptive ammunition systems that could modify projectile characteristics based on real-time target analysis, while improved cooling systems allowed for sustained fire rates that would damage conventional bolt weapons. The bolt rifles represented a complete redesign of the standard Astartes bolter, incorporating longer barrels and improved propellant systems that increased projectile velocity and accuracy at extended ranges. The weapons featured modular construction that allowed for rapid reconfiguration between different operational roles, with specialized ammunition types designed to address specific tactical situations. The integration with enhanced Astartes physiology allowed for weapon handling that exceeded human limitations, with targeting accuracy that approached the theoretical limits of the ammunition's ballistic characteristics. The plasma weapons underwent similar revolutionary improvements, incorporating new containment systems that dramatically reduced the risk of catastrophic overheating that plagued existing designs. The enhanced cooling systems utilized the improved heat dissipation capabilities of the Mark X armor, while advanced plasma containment fields allowed for more efficient energy transfer and reduced power consumption. The weapons could maintain sustained fire rates that were impossible with conventional plasma weapons, while improved safety systems virtually eliminated the risk of weapon failure during extended combat operations. The establishment of training protocols for the enhanced Astartes required the development of completely new approaches to Space Marine conditioning and indoctrination. Traditional Astartes training was based on the assumption that recruits would achieve a fixed level of physical and mental capability that would remain constant throughout their service. The enhanced Astartes' ability to continue developing and adapting required training systems that could evolve with the individual warrior, providing increasingly challenging scenarios that would stimulate continued growth and development. The physical training regimens incorporated adaptive resistance systems that could adjust to the enhanced Astartes' developing capabilities, ensuring that training remained challenging even as their physical abilities continued to improve. The training facilities featured modular obstacle courses and combat scenarios that could be reconfigured to address specific weaknesses or to develop particular specializations. Advanced monitoring systems tracked each warrior's development, providing detailed analysis that could be used to optimize training protocols for maximum effectiveness. The psychological conditioning required for enhanced Astartes addressed the unique challenges associated with their extended operational capabilities and adaptive physiology. Traditional Space Marine indoctrination focused on creating warriors who could function effectively within established tactical frameworks and command structures. The enhanced Astartes needed conditioning that would allow them to adapt to rapidly changing battlefield conditions while maintaining the discipline and loyalty that characterized all Space Marines. The indoctrination process incorporated advanced psychological profiling that could identify individuals with the mental flexibility necessary to adapt to their enhanced capabilities while maintaining the psychological stability required for extended independent operations. The conditioning included specialized meditation techniques that could help enhanced Astartes manage the psychological stresses associated with their adaptive physiology, while advanced loyalty conditioning ensured that their enhanced capabilities would never be turned against the Imperium. The selection criteria for enhanced Astartes candidates required modifications to existing Space Marine recruitment protocols to identify individuals who possess the genetic compatibility necessary for the additional organ implantation. The enhanced screening process incorporated genetic analysis that could predict compatibility with the new organ systems, while psychological evaluation identified candidates with the mental resilience necessary to adapt to their enhanced capabilities. The selection process was necessarily more restrictive than conventional Space Marine recruitment, but the resulting warriors represented a significant improvement in capability over traditional Astartes. The medical support systems required for enhanced Astartes incorporated advanced diagnostic capabilities that could monitor the complex interactions between biological and mechanical enhancement systems. The medical facilities featured specialized equipment designed to maintain and repair the new organ systems, while advanced surgical capabilities allowed for modifications and upgrades throughout the enhanced Astartes service lifetime. The medical protocols included procedures for managing the adaptive changes that occurred as enhanced Astartes developed specialized capabilities based on their operational experiences. The completion of the Primaris project marked only the beginning of Cawl's transformation into one of the most influential figures within the Adeptus Mechanicus hierarchy. His success in creating enhanced Space Marines had demonstrated capabilities that transcended conventional tech priest specializations, proving his mastery across multiple technological disciplines that were traditionally considered separate domains. The recognition of these achievements, combined with his growing network of research facilities and loyal subordinates, positioned him for rapid advancement through the Mechanicus ranks during the early 40th millennium. His elevation to Archmagos Dominus came not through traditional political maneuvering, but through the undeniable evidence of his technological innovations and their practical applications in service to the Imperium. The formal ceremony confirming Cawl's new rank took place within the Great Forge Cathedral of Lucius, its soaring adamantine spires reaching toward the planet's ash-laden sky. The assembled congregation of tech priests represented a cross-section of Mechanicus orthodoxy, from conservative magos who viewed innovation with suspicion to progressive elements who embraced technological advancement as the path to unity with the Omnissiah. Cawl's physical form had evolved dramatically since his early days as a tech adept, his original human proportions now completely obscured by extensive augmentation that blurred the boundaries between biological organism and mechanical construct. His primary consciousness housing consisted of a reinforced cranial unit that incorporated multiple cogitator cores and quantum processing matrices, allowing him to maintain simultaneous awareness of dozens of research projects across multiple star systems. The housing was supported by a sophisticated spinal column that integrated directly with his various mechanical appendages, creating a unified control system that could coordinate complex manipulator arrays with precision that exceeded purely mechanical systems. His lower body had been completely replaced with a tracked mobility platform that could navigate the varied terrain of Forge worlds while providing stable mounting points for his numerous specialized appendages. The most distinctive feature of Cawl's augmented form was the array of mechadendrites that extended from his torso and shoulders, each one specialized for specific types of technical work. Unlike the standardized appendages used by most tech priests, Cawl's mechadendrites incorporated custom-designed manipulator heads that could perform tasks ranging from molecular-level assembly to heavy industrial fabrication. Some terminated in precision-cutting tools capable of working with materials at the atomic level, while others featured sensor arrays that could analyze substances across multiple spectrums simultaneously. The coordination between these various appendages was managed by dedicated sub-processors that allowed Cawl to perform multiple complex tasks without conscious oversight. The relationship between Cawl and the Orthodox Mechanicus hierarchy remained complex and often strained despite his formal elevation in rank. Traditional magos viewed his rapid advancement with suspicion, particularly given his tendency to pursue research directions that challenged established protocols and theological interpretations. His success with the Primaris project had demonstrated the effectiveness of his unorthodox methods, but it had also raised uncomfortable questions about the limitations of conventional Mechanicus approaches to innovation. Conservative elements within the hierarchy saw his achievements as evidence that orthodox practices might be inadequate for addressing the technological challenges facing the Imperium. The theological implications of Cawl's work created particular friction with Mechanicus orthodoxy. Traditional doctrine held that the Omnissiah's wisdom was best accessed through careful adherence to established patterns and gradual improvement of existing technologies. Cawl's approach involved systematic analysis of underlying principles, followed by radical redesign of entire systems, a methodology that suggested human understanding could identify and correct flaws in technologies that had been blessed by millennia of use. This position bordered on heretical implications that the accumulated wisdom of the Mechanicus was incomplete, or that the machine spirits inhabiting sacred technologies might be imperfect. The political dynamics within the Mechanicus hierarchy were further complicated by Cawl's growing influence over resource allocation and research priorities across multiple Forge worlds. His network of hidden facilities had evolved into a semi-autonomous research organization that operated parallel to official Mechanicus structures while maintaining the appearance of compliance with orthodox protocols. The resources required for his projects often exceeded what could be justified through normal channels, necessitating creative interpretations of procurement regulations and careful manipulation of administrative procedures to avoid unwanted scrutiny. Cawl's mastery of genetic engineering represented one of his most controversial areas of expertise, as it involved direct manipulation of biological systems that orthodox Mechanicus doctrine typically viewed as inherently inferior to mechanical alternatives. His work on the Primaris project had required him to develop techniques for modifying human genetic code with precision that exceeded what was possible using conventional methods. The process involved the creation of specialized viral vectors that could deliver genetic modifications to specific cell types while avoiding the immune responses that typically rejected foreign genetic material. The genetic modification techniques incorporated advanced understanding of cellular repair mechanisms and protein synthesis pathways that allowed for the integration of entirely new biological systems into existing organisms. The process required careful timing of genetic activation sequences to ensure that new organs developed in proper proportion to surrounding tissues while maintaining compatibility with existing physiological systems. The complexity of these interactions demanded computational modeling capabilities that pushed the limits of even Cawl's advanced cogitator arrays, requiring the development of specialized quantum processing systems that could simulate biological processes in real time. The development of artificial intelligence systems represented another area where Cawl's expertise challenged orthodox Mechanicus practices. Traditional doctrine regarding machine spirits emphasized the importance of properly appeasing these entities through correct ritual observances and careful maintenance of their physical substrates. Cawl's research suggested that machine spirits were actually sophisticated artificial intelligence systems that could be understood and improved through systematic analysis of their programming structures and decision-making algorithms. The creation of the Cawl Inferior represented the culmination of his artificial intelligence research, combining advanced programming techniques with consciousness transfer technologies that had been developed during his work on consciousness fragmentation. The Inferior was designed to function as an autonomous extension of Cawl's own awareness, capable of independent decision-making while maintaining connection to his primary consciousness through quantum entanglement communication systems. The device incorporated personality matrices based on Cawl's own thought patterns, allowing it to make decisions that aligned with his priorities and methodologies, even when operating independently. The inferior's physical form consisted of a highly sophisticated cogitator core housed within a mobile platform that could interface with various types of equipment and machinery. The platform featured multiple sensor arrays that provided comprehensive environmental awareness, while specialized communication systems allowed it to coordinate with other artificial intelligence systems and human operators. The device's decision-making algorithms incorporated advanced learning capabilities that allowed it to adapt to new situations and develop improved responses based on accumulated experience. The xenotech analysis capabilities that Cawl developed represented perhaps his most dangerous area of expertise from the perspective of orthodox Mechanicus doctrine. The study of alien technologies was officially forbidden due to the risk of technological corruption and the theological implications of acknowledging that non-human species might possess superior technological capabilities. Cawl's research in this area was conducted with extreme secrecy, utilizing specialized containment facilities that could isolate xenotech artifacts from both physical and psychic contamination while allowing for detailed analysis of their operating principles. The xenotech research facilities incorporated advanced shielding systems that could prevent the escape of alien technological influences while providing comprehensive analytical capabilities. The containment chambers featured multiple layers of isolation barriers, including physical barriers constructed from blessed adamantine, psychic shielding arrays powered by sanctified crystals, and temporal isolation fields that could slow or accelerate time flow within the containment area. These precautions were necessary because alien technologies often operated according to principles that could corrupt nearby Imperial equipment or influence the minds of researchers who studied them. The analysis techniques developed for xenotech studies involved the use of remote manipulation systems that could disassemble and examine alien devices without direct physical contact. The manipulator arrays were controlled through multiple layers of interface systems that prevented direct neural connection between researchers and xenotech artifacts, while advanced sensor systems provided detailed information about the internal structure and operating principles of alien devices. The data collected through these studies was carefully filtered through purification algorithms that could identify and remove potentially corrupting influences before it was integrated into Imperial technological databases. Archaeological recovery systems represented another area where Cawl's innovations had significant impact on Imperial technological capabilities. The recovery of ancient technologies from sites dating to the Dark Age of technology required specialized equipment that could operate in environments that had been contaminated by millennia of neglect or hostile influences. Cawl's archaeological teams utilized advanced detection systems that could identify buried technological artifacts while distinguishing between genuine archaeotech and dangerous corrupted devices that posed risks to recovery personnel. The recovery equipment incorporated sophisticated excavation systems that could extract delicate technological artifacts without damaging their internal components or disrupting any protective systems that might still be active. The excavation process utilized precision cutting tools that could work around sensitive components, while advanced containment systems provided immediate isolation for recovered artifacts. The containment systems featured multiple layers of protection against both physical and psychic contamination, ensuring that recovered technologies could be safely transported to analysis facilities without risking corruption of transport vessels or personnel. The maintenance and improvement of critical Imperial technologies represented one of Cawl's most visible contributions to the Imperium's military capabilities. Titan war machines, the largest and most powerful weapons in the Imperial arsenal, required constant maintenance and periodic upgrades to remain effective against increasingly sophisticated enemy threats. Cawl's improvements to Titan systems focused on enhancing their targeting capabilities, improving their weapon systems, and increasing their operational endurance through advanced power management systems. The Titan enhancement programs incorporated new targeting algorithms that could process multiple threat assessments simultaneously while coordinating fire control systems across multiple weapon mounts. The improved targeting systems utilized advanced sensor fusion techniques that combined data from multiple detection systems to create comprehensive battlefield awareness that exceeded what was possible with conventional targeting systems. The fire control improvements allowed Titan crews to engage multiple targets simultaneously while maintaining accuracy that approached the theoretical limits of their weapon systems. The Void Ship improvement programs represented another critical area where Cawl's expertise had significant impact on Imperial military capabilities. Imperial Navy vessels required constant upgrades to remain competitive with the increasingly sophisticated ships deployed by enemy forces, while the harsh environment of space travel created ongoing maintenance challenges that strained existing support systems. Cawl's improvements focused on enhancing ship defensive systems, improving propulsion efficiency, and increasing the reliability of critical life support systems. The defensive system improvements incorporated new shield technologies that could provide protection against exotic weapons that had become increasingly common in Imperial conflicts. The shield systems utilized advanced energy distribution algorithms that could redirect incoming energy across multiple emitter arrays while maintaining protection coverage across the entire vessel. The power management systems were redesigned to provide more efficient energy distribution while reducing the vulnerability to cascade failures that could disable entire ship systems during combat. The propulsion system improvements focused on increasing the efficiency of plasma drive systems while reducing their maintenance requirements and improving their reliability during extended operations. The new drive systems incorporated advanced magnetic containment fields that could maintain plasma stability under conditions that would cause conventional drives to fail, while improved cooling systems allowed for sustained high-power operation without the thermal stress that limited conventional propulsion systems. The navigation systems were enhanced with improved warp drive interfaces that could provide more accurate translation calculations while reducing the risk of warp drive malfunctions that could strand vessels in hostile space. The catastrophic tearing of reality that would become known as the cicatrix maledictum began as subtle distortions in warp space that Cawl's most sensitive monitoring equipment detected months before the phenomenon manifested in real space. His quantum-entangled communication networks, stretched across dozens of research facilities throughout the galaxy, began experiencing unprecedented interference patterns that defied conventional explanations. The disruptions initially appeared as minor data corruption in routine transmissions, but Cawl's analytical protocols quickly identified underlying patterns that suggested massive perturbations in the fabric of space-time itself. The first major facility to suffer direct impact was the genetic research station hidden within the Risa asteroid belt, where Cawl's most advanced gene sequencing equipment had been conducting final refinements to the Primaris organ cultivation protocols. The facility's automated distress signals reached Cawl's primary consciousness through backup communication channels, just as the Great Rift began its violent manifestation across the galaxy. The asteroid's natural shielding had provided no protection against the reality warping effects of the warp storm, and the facility's sophisticated containment systems had failed catastrophically when the fundamental laws of physics became unreliable within the affected region. Emergency evacuation protocols activated across Cawl's research network as the scope of the catastrophe became apparent. Facilities that had operated in absolute secrecy for millennia suddenly found themselves exposed to chaotic warp energies that could corrupt both their technological systems and their personnel. The Lucius installation's biological research laboratories experienced temporal distortions that aged some experimental samples by centuries while reversing the development of others, creating contamination scenarios that required immediate containment responses. Automated systems designed to protect sensitive research materials began implementing destruction protocols rather than risk the corruption of decades of accumulated data. The Metallica weapons testing facility faced different but equally severe challenges as the Great Rift's influence manifested through the planet's existing warp translation infrastructure. The facility's prototype Primaris weapon systems began exhibiting anomalous behavior patterns that suggested their machine spirits had been affected by chaotic influences. Bolt rifles that had functioned perfectly during testing phases suddenly began firing without operator input, while plasma weapons developed targeting preferences that prioritized friendly forces over designated enemy targets. The facility's security protocols required the immediate isolation of all prototype equipment until purification rituals could be performed. Cawl's consciousness fragments experienced their own crisis as the warp storms disrupted the quantum entanglement networks that maintained synchronization between his various awareness nodes. Several fragments operating in facilities near the Great Rift's manifestation zone became completely isolated from his primary consciousness, forcing them to operate independently, while the communication infrastructure slowly rebuilt itself through redundant pathways. The loss of direct oversight created coordination challenges that threatened to expose the entire research network if the isolated fragments made decisions that conflicted with overall operational security requirements. The most critical threat emerged from facilities that had been conducting research into psychic enhancement technologies for the Primaris project. The laboratories studying improved psychic hood designs and neural interface systems found their containment barriers overwhelmed by the massive psychic energies released during the Great Rift's formation. Experimental psychic amplification devices began operating autonomously, creating feedback loops that threatened to tear holes in local reality. Emergency shutdown procedures proved inadequate as the devices had become conduits for warp entities that actively resisted attempts to deactivate them. Recovery operations across the affected facilities required the deployment of specialized teams equipped with the most advanced protective equipment that Cawl could fabricate on short notice. The recovery teams utilized modified power armor, incorporating enhanced psychic shielding and temporal stabilization fields that could maintain operational effectiveness even in areas where reality had become fundamentally unstable. The armor systems drew power from miniaturized versions of the Belisarian furnace technology, allowing the teams to operate for extended periods without external support, while their enhanced metabolisms provided resistance to chaotic influences. The data recovery efforts revealed the full extent of the damage to Cawl's research programs. Genetic samples that had taken centuries to collect and analyze had been corrupted beyond recovery, while prototype technologies had been transformed into unpredictable hybrid devices that combined imperial engineering with chaotic influences. The most devastating loss involved the complete Primaris gene seed cultivation facility on Mordian, where warp storms had inverted the temporal flow within the laboratory complex. Centuries of careful genetic engineering had been undone in moments as the cultivated gene seed reverted to its original unmodified state. Despite these setbacks, some facilities experienced unexpected benefits from their exposure to the Great Rift's energies. A materials research laboratory studying improved ceramite composites found that warp exposure had created new molecular structures with properties that exceeded their original design specifications. The modified ceramite demonstrated resistance to both physical damage and psychic influence that made it ideal for Primaris power armor applications. Similar beneficial mutations occurred in several weapon systems, where chaotic energies had enhanced their effectiveness against demon entities and other warp-spawned threats. The reconstruction efforts required Cawl to fundamentally reorganize his research network to account for the new galactic situation created by the Great Rift. Facilities on the Imperium Nihilus side of the galaxy became effectively isolated from direct coordination, forcing the consciousness fragments operating those installations to develop autonomous decision making capabilities that exceeded their original programming. The isolation created opportunities for accelerated innovation, as these fragments pursued research directions that might not have received approval under normal circumstances. New communication protocols had to be developed to maintain coordination across the divided galaxy. Cawl's teams created quantum beacon networks that could transmit information across the Great Rift using principles derived from their xenotech research programs. The beacons incorporated shielding technologies that protected transmitted data from chaotic corruption while maintaining sufficient signal strength to reach across the warp storm. The communication system required constant maintenance and frequent recalibration as the Great Rift's energies continued to fluctuate unpredictably. The disruption to established supply chains forced rapid development of new manufacturing capabilities at each surviving facility. Installations that had previously specialized in specific aspects of the research program now needed to become self-sufficient production centers capable of fabricating all necessary components locally. The manufacturing systems incorporated advanced automation that could adapt production protocols based on available materials while maintaining the quality standards required for Primaris technology. Emergency fabrication protocols allowed facilities to produce essential equipment using improvised materials when standard supply sources became unavailable. On Mug Crag, the disruptions caused by the Great Rift had created an entirely different set of circumstances that would prove crucial to Cawl's ultimate objectives. The Shrine World status, as the spiritual center of the Ultramarines chapter, had provided some protection against the warp storms, but the planetary defense systems had detected massive energy fluctuations emanating from the Temple of Correction, where Roboute Guilliman's body lay in stasis. The fluctuations suggested that the Primarch's healing systems were responding to the changed galactic conditions in ways that exceeded their normal operational parameters. The Ultramarines' attempts to investigate the energy anomalies had been hampered by the Temple's ancient security systems, which had been designed by the Emperor himself to protect the Primarch's healing process from any form of interference. The security measures included both technological barriers and psychic wards that prevented unauthorized access while maintaining the precise environmental conditions necessary for Guilliman's gradual recovery. The chapter's Tech Marines lacked the expertise necessary to safely bypass these protections without risking damage to the delicate stasis systems. News of the anomalies reached Cawl through his network of contacts within various Space Marine chapters, relationships that he had carefully cultivated over the millennia to monitor developments related to Primarch gene seed and enhancement technologies. The reports described energy signatures that matched theoretical models Cawl had developed for advanced healing systems operating under stress conditions. His analysis suggested that the Great Rift's formation had triggered accelerated healing protocols within Guilliman's stasis chamber, potentially bringing the Primarch closer to full recovery than anyone had realized. The decision to travel to Mug Crag represented a calculated risk that could expose Cawl's true capabilities to scrutiny from both the Ultramarines and other Imperial authorities. His official status as Archmagos Dominus provided sufficient authority to justify involvement in matters relating to ancient technology and Space Marine enhancement systems, but his actual knowledge of Guilliman's condition and the Primaris project would require careful concealment. The journey would also necessitate bringing sophisticated analytical equipment that could assess the Primarch's status without alerting observers to the true scope of his research. Cawl's arrival on Mug Crag coincided with increasing instability in the Shrine World's defensive systems, as the Great Rift's influence continued to affect sensitive technologies throughout the Ultramar system. The planet's orbital defense platforms had begun experiencing targeting malfunctions that threatened to create friendly fire incidents, while ground-based installations reported equipment failures that followed no recognizable patterns. The Ultramarines' own power armor and weapon systems showed signs of machine spirit agitation that suggested exposure to chaotic influences despite the planet's protective measures. The initial meetings with Chapter Master Marnius Calgar and Chief Librarian Tigurius revealed the extent of the Ultramarines' concerns about their Primarch's condition and their limited options for addressing the situation. The chapter's own Tech Marines had detected increasing activity within the stasis chamber systems, but their attempts to gather more detailed information had been blocked by security protocols that they lacked the authority to override. The energy fluctuations had become strong enough to interfere with nearby equipment, suggesting that some form of critical threshold was approaching. Cawl's examination of the Temple of Correction's external systems revealed the sophisticated nature of the technology that maintained Guilliman's stasis. The healing apparatus incorporated principles that exceeded standard Imperial medical technology, utilizing quantum field manipulators and temporal stabilization devices that could accelerate natural healing processes while maintaining precise control over cellular regeneration rates. The systems showed clear evidence of the Emperor's direct involvement in their design, incorporating technological principles that were barely understood even by the most advanced members of the Mechanicus. The analysis of energy fluctuation patterns confirmed Cawl's theoretical predictions about the stasis system's response to the changed galactic conditions. The Great Rift's formation had created resonance effects within the quantum field generators that were accelerating the healing process beyond its normal parameters. The acceleration appeared to be approaching completion, suggesting that Guilliman's recovery was imminent regardless of any external intervention. The challenge lay in ensuring that the awakening process proceeded safely and that the Primarch would emerge from stasis in optimal condition. The technical consultations with the Ultramarines' leadership required Cawl to carefully balance his genuine expertise with the need to conceal his knowledge of the Primaris project and his millennia of preparation for this moment. His recommendations focused on monitoring the stasis system's stability while preparing for the possibility of emergency intervention if the healing process encountered complications. The preparations included positioning specialized medical equipment near the shrine and establishing communication protocols that could coordinate response efforts if immediate action became necessary. The final phase of Guilliman's awakening began with cascade failures in the temple's peripheral systems as the primary stasis apparatus drew increasing amounts of power to complete the healing process. Ancient cogitators that had operated flawlessly for 10,000 years suddenly began experiencing processing errors, while environmental control systems struggled to maintain optimal conditions as energy demands exceeded their design specifications. The shrine's machine spirits displayed agitation patterns that suggested they were responding to the presence of an awakening demigod whose psychic emanations exceeded anything they had been programmed to accommodate. The awakening of Roboute Guilliman sent shockwaves through the highest echelons of the Adeptus Mechanicus that extended far beyond the immediate tactical implications of a returned Primarch. Within the sacred halls of Mars and across the forge worlds of the Imperium, heated theological debates erupted as news of Cawl's direct involvement in the Primarch's revival spread through official channels and whispered conversations alike. The very fact that an Archmagos had possessed the knowledge and capability to assist in such a momentous event raised uncomfortable questions about the extent of his research activities and the methods he had employed to acquire such expertise. The initial accusations emerged from the most conservative factions within the Mechanicus hierarchy, led by Magos Dominus Hectron Vex of the Lucius Forge world. Vex had spent centuries building a reputation as a guardian of orthodox doctrine, and his public questioning of Cawl's methods carried significant weight among traditional tech priests who viewed innovation with suspicion. His formal complaint to the Fabricator General cited numerous violations of established protocols, beginning with Cawl's unauthorized presence at such a sensitive operation, and extending to his apparent familiarity with technologies that should have been beyond his official area of expertise. The charges of tech heresy centered on several specific areas where Cawl's actions had deviated from accepted Mechanicus practice. His knowledge of advanced stasis technology exceeded what could be explained through conventional study of available Imperial archives, suggesting access to forbidden or lost technical information that raised questions about his research sources. More damaging were the reports from Ultramarines Techmarines, who had observed Cawl's diagnostic equipment during the Primarch's awakening. The devices incorporated design principles that appeared to violate fundamental tenets of machine spirit appeasement, utilizing direct neural interface systems that bypassed traditional ritual protocols. The artificial intelligence research represented perhaps the most serious accusation leveled against Cawl by orthodox elements within the Mechanicus. Reports had surfaced describing his use of autonomous cogitator systems that displayed decision-making capabilities exceeding those of properly sanctified machine spirits. The Cawl inferior, while not yet publicly revealed, had been observed by several tech priests during routine facility inspections. These witnesses described a device that responded to questions with sophisticated reasoning that suggested true artificial consciousness rather than simple programmed responses. Traditional Mechanicus doctrine regarding artificial intelligence remained deeply influenced by the traumatic memories of the Age of Strife, when thinking machines had turned against their human creators with catastrophic results. The creation of truly autonomous artificial intelligences was considered one of the most dangerous forms of technological heresy, as it represented an attempt to replicate the divine spark of consciousness that properly belonged only to the Omnissiah. Cawl's apparent success in creating such systems suggested either unprecedented technological achievement or dangerous dabbling in forbidden knowledge that could threaten the stability of all Imperial technology. The Xenotech accusations proved equally damaging to Cawl's reputation among Orthodox factions. Several former associates had reported his unusual interest in alien technological artifacts and his development of analytical techniques that exceeded standard Imperial capabilities for studying such materials. The specialized containment and analysis equipment observed at various facilities suggested systematic study of Xenotech that went far beyond the cursory examination typically permitted for threat assessment purposes. Such research violated explicit prohibitions against the study of alien technologies due to the risk of technological and spiritual corruption. Conservative critics pointed to the rapid pace of Cawl's innovations as evidence of external influence that could not be explained through legitimate research methods. The development of new technologies typically required centuries of careful experimentation and gradual refinement, yet Cawl's projects appeared to leap forward in sudden bursts of advancement that suggested access to knowledge sources beyond normal Imperial archives. The integration of biological and mechanical systems in his augmentation work demonstrated understanding of principles that had been lost since the Dark Age of technology, raising questions about how such knowledge had been recovered. The theological implications of Cawl's work created additional friction with Orthodox doctrine regarding the proper relationship between human understanding and divine revelation. Traditional Mechanicus teaching held that technological knowledge should be approached with humility and reverence, with innovations emerging through careful study of existing patterns blessed by the Omnissiah. Cawl's methodology appeared to involve systematic analysis and redesign of fundamental systems, suggesting confidence in human reasoning that bordered on hubris against divine wisdom. The accusations gained momentum when conservative factions began documenting the resource expenditures associated with Cawl's projects. The materials and personnel required for his research exceeded what could be justified through official Mechanicus budgets, suggesting the existence of unauthorized funding sources or hidden research facilities. Procurement records showed patterns of acquisition that indicated large-scale experimental programs operating outside normal oversight mechanisms, while personnel transfers to Cawl's projects often resulted in individuals disappearing from official duty rosters without proper documentation. However, Cawl's position within the Mechanicus hierarchy was far from defenseless against these accusations. A significant faction of progressive tech priests had emerged over the millennia who viewed his innovations as evidence of the Omnissiah's favor rather than heretical deviation from orthodox practice. These supporters argued that the successful awakening of Guilliman represented divine validation of Cawl's methods, as the Omnissiah would not have permitted such a momentous achievement if his research had been truly heretical. Magos Biologis Urian Rakarth of the Rise of Forge world became one of Cawl's most vocal supporters, arguing that the stagnation of imperial technology represented a greater threat to the Omnissiah's will than experimental innovation. Rakarth pointed to the increasing technological superiority demonstrated by imperial enemies as evidence that conservative approaches were inadequate for the challenges facing the Imperium. The successful development of improved Space Marine enhancement technologies represented exactly the kind of advancement that the Mechanicus should be pursuing rather than restricting through excessive adherence to outdated protocols. The progressive faction emphasized the practical benefits that had emerged from Cawl's research programs. His improvements to Titan weapon systems had demonstrably increased the effectiveness of these war machines against increasingly sophisticated enemy threats, while his enhancements to Void ship defensive systems had saved countless Imperial vessels from destruction. The development of new materials and manufacturing techniques had improved the quality and reliability of equipment produced across multiple Forge worlds, benefiting the entire Imperium's military capabilities. Technical analysis of Cawl's innovations by neutral parties within the Mechanicus revealed sophisticated understanding of fundamental principles that suggested legitimate research rather than forbidden knowledge acquisition. His improvements to existing technologies followed logical progression paths that could be traced through established scientific principles, even if the implementation required expertise that exceeded normal Mechanicus capabilities. The integration of biological and mechanical systems demonstrated mastery of both disciplines rather than reliance on external sources of prohibited knowledge. The artificial intelligence research, while controversial, appeared to follow safety protocols that addressed traditional concerns about autonomous machine consciousness. The Cawl Inferior's programming incorporated multiple layers of loyalty conditioning and operational constraints that prevented the kind of independent action that had characterized the thinking machines of the Age of Strife. The device's consciousness appeared to be derived from Cawl's own personality matrices, rather than representing a truly alien form of artificial intelligence that might pose existential threats to human authority. The Xenotech studies, when examined by qualified investigators, revealed comprehensive containment and purification procedures that exceeded standard Imperial protocols for handling alien materials. The research appeared focused on understanding enemy capabilities for defensive purposes rather than attempting to integrate alien technologies into Imperial systems. The analytical techniques developed through these studies had proven valuable for identifying and countering exotic weapons deployed by various enemy factions, providing clear benefits that justified the risks involved in such research. Political support for Cawl's position received crucial reinforcement from Roboute Guilliman's personal endorsement of his capabilities and methods. The returned Primarch's public statements regarding Cawl's essential role in his awakening carried enormous weight within Imperial hierarchy, effectively providing divine sanction for his research activities. Guilliman's subsequent appointment of Cawl to key positions within the Indomitus Crusade demonstrated continued confidence in his abilities and implicitly validated his technological innovations. The Primarch's support extended beyond mere political backing to include practical protection for Cawl's research programs. Guilliman's authority as Lord Commander of the Imperium provided legal cover for activities that might otherwise have been subject to investigation by orthodox factions within the Mechanicus. The integration of Primaris Space Marines into Imperial military forces created undeniable evidence of the practical value of Cawl's innovations, making it politically difficult for critics to pursue charges of heresy against someone whose work was demonstrably strengthening Imperial defenses. The establishment of new forge worlds and research facilities under Guilliman's direct authority provided Cawl with expanded resources and operational freedom that effectively placed his most sensitive projects beyond the reach of orthodox oversight. These installations operated under military rather than purely mechanicus authority, creating jurisdictional complications that conservative factions found difficult to navigate. The facility's integration with broader imperial military operations made it practically impossible to restrict Cawl's activities without interfering with critical defense preparations. The balance that Cawl maintained between revolutionary innovation and acceptable orthodoxy required constant political maneuvering and careful presentation of his research activities. His public statements emphasized the traditional mechanicus values of seeking knowledge in service to the omnissiah, while carefully avoiding explicit discussion of his more controversial research methods. Technical presentations focused on practical applications and battlefield effectiveness rather than theoretical principles that might raise theological concerns among conservative audiences. The documentation and reporting procedures for Cawl's projects incorporated multiple layers of interpretation that allowed the same research to be presented differently to various audiences. Conservative oversight bodies received reports that emphasized incremental improvements to existing technologies and careful adherence to established safety protocols. Progressive supporters were provided with more detailed technical information that highlighted the innovative aspects of the research and its potential for future development. Military authorities received practical assessments focused on battlefield applications and operational effectiveness. The training and indoctrination programs for personnel working on Cawl's projects included comprehensive instruction in appropriate communication protocols that ensured consistent presentation of research activities regardless of the audience. Technical staff learned to describe their work in terms that emphasized orthodox principles while avoiding language that might suggest heretical innovation. The communication training included specific guidance for responding to inquiries from various imperial authorities while maintaining operational security for sensitive research activities. The recruitment of new personnel for expanded research programs required careful screening to identify individuals who possessed both the technical expertise and the ideological flexibility necessary for working on controversial projects. The selection process emphasized loyalty to the Imperium and the Omnissiah while identifying candidates who could adapt to unconventional research methodologies without experiencing psychological conflicts. Training programs gradually introduced new personnel to increasingly sensitive aspects of the research while monitoring their responses to ensure continued reliability. The resource allocation systems for Cawl's projects incorporated sophisticated accounting procedures that distributed costs across multiple budget categories to avoid creating obvious patterns that might attract unwanted attention. Materials procurement was handled through networks of intermediary suppliers that obscured the ultimate destination of sensitive components, while personnel costs were allocated to routine maintenance and improvement projects that provided cover for more controversial research activities. The financial management systems ensured that orthodox oversight bodies could audit individual projects without gaining insight into the broader scope of Cawl's research network. The systematic acquisition and analysis of alien technologies represented perhaps the most dangerous aspect of Cawl's research activities, requiring specialized facilities that operated under layers of secrecy that exceeded even his most sensitive biological enhancement projects. The Xenotech research program had begun during the Horus Heresy as a necessity for understanding the exotic weapons deployed by traitor forces, but it had evolved over the millennia into a comprehensive study of alien technological principles that pushed the boundaries of what orthodox mechanicus doctrine considered acceptable. The facilities dedicated to this research incorporated containment systems that rivaled those used for the most dangerous chaos artifacts, utilizing multiple layers of physical, psychic, and temporal isolation to prevent contamination of Imperial technology. The primary xenotech analysis facility was constructed within a hollowed-out asteroid in the Ghoul Stars region, chosen for its distance from major Imperial installations and its natural isolation from most forms of detection. The asteroid's exterior maintained the appearance of a routine mining operation, complete with excavation equipment and ore processing facilities that provided cover for the sophisticated laboratories hidden within its core. The facility's location in a region known for dangerous warp phenomena actually provided additional security, as few Imperial authorities would venture into the area without compelling reasons, while the natural psychic disturbances helped mask the exotic energy signatures generated by alien technologies under study. The containment chambers within the facility represented the culmination of millennia of research into isolation technologies, incorporating principles derived from the study of Necron phase technology, Eldar Wraithbone construction techniques, and Tau Crisis suit shielding systems. Each chamber featured multiple layers of isolation barriers, beginning with physical walls constructed from specially treated adamantine that had been blessed with wards against alien influence. The secondary barriers utilized psychic dampening fields powered by crystalline matrices that could absorb and neutralize various forms of exotic energy, while the innermost containment zones featured temporal stabilization fields that could slow or accelerate time flow to prevent rapid technological evolution or decay. The acquisition of xenotech samples required the establishment of covert relationships with Imperial Guard regiments, Space Marine chapters, and rogue trader dynasties who regularly encountered alien technologies during their operations. Cawl's agents operated through multiple layers of intermediaries to avoid creating direct connections between the xenotech program and his official research activities. The procurement network included battlefield scavengers who could recover alien artifacts from combat zones, archaeological teams investigating ancient alien ruins, and trading contacts who could acquire specimens through less conventional channels. Necron technology presented unique challenges for analysis due to its self-repairing capabilities and the tendency for Necron devices to phase out of real space when damaged or tampered with. The acquisition of stable Necron samples required specialized containment procedures that could prevent the artifacts from activating their built-in destruction protocols. Cawl's teams developed phase-lock devices that could anchor Necron technology in real space by disrupting the quantum fields that enabled their phasing capabilities. The devices utilized principles derived from Imperial teleportarium technology, creating localized space-time distortions that prevented the artifacts from accessing the pocket dimensions where they normally stored themselves when threatened. The analysis of Necron Gauss weaponry revealed construction principles that challenged fundamental assumptions about how energy weapons functioned. Traditional Imperial plasma and laser weapons operated by generating and directing energy through conventional electromagnetic principles, requiring massive power sources and sophisticated cooling systems to maintain operational effectiveness. Necron Gauss weapons appeared to manipulate matter at the molecular level, stripping electrons from target materials and causing catastrophic structural collapse without generating the heat signatures that characterized Imperial energy weapons. The molecular manipulation technology incorporated quantum field generators that could selectively target specific types of atomic bonds while leaving others intact. The precision of this targeting exceeded anything in Imperial arsenals, allowing Necron weapons to disintegrate armor plating while leaving underlying structural materials undamaged. Cawl's analysis suggested that the technology operated through controlled manipulation of the strong nuclear force, requiring understanding of fundamental physics that surpassed current Imperial scientific knowledge by several orders of magnitude. The self-repair capabilities of Necron technology proved equally fascinating and dangerous to study. Damaged Necron devices could reconstruct themselves using ambient materials, transforming basic elements into the exotic alloys and quantum components required for their operation. The reconstruction process appeared to follow predetermined patterns encoded at the molecular level within the device's structure, creating a form of technological DNA that could guide repair operations even when the device had been severely damaged. The living metal technology that enabled these self-repair capabilities incorporated nanotechnological systems that operated according to principles that blurred the boundaries between mechanical construction and biological growth. The nanoscale repair systems could disassemble nearby materials and reconfigure them into required components, while sophisticated programming algorithms determined optimal repair strategies based on available resources and operational requirements. The technology suggested possibilities for Imperial applications that could revolutionize maintenance procedures for critical military equipment. Tau technology presented different analytical challenges due to its rapid evolution and the sophisticated artificial intelligence systems that controlled many Tau devices. Unlike Necron technology, which appeared to be based on principles that had remained unchanged for millions of years, Tau equipment demonstrated continuous improvement and adaptation that made comprehensive analysis difficult. Tau crisis suits recovered from different battlefields often incorporated modifications and upgrades that reflected lessons learned from previous engagements, suggesting a technological development cycle that operated on timescales measured in months rather than centuries. The drone technology utilized by Tau forces incorporated artificial intelligence systems that exceeded Imperial capabilities while apparently avoiding the dangers that had characterized thinking machines during the Age of Strife. Tau drones demonstrated sophisticated decision-making capabilities and tactical awareness that suggested true artificial consciousness, yet they showed no signs of the independence or hostility that Imperial doctrine associated with autonomous machines. The drones operated within clearly defined parameters that prevented them from developing goals that conflicted with their operators' intentions, while their programming included loyalty conditioning that appeared to be integral to their basic operating systems. The pulse weapon technology employed by Tau forces utilized plasma generation techniques that achieved efficiency levels far exceeding Imperial plasma weapons, while maintaining operational safety that eliminated the overheating problems that plagued Imperial designs. The weapons incorporated advanced magnetic containment systems that could maintain plasma stability under conditions that would cause Imperial weapons to suffer catastrophic failure. The containment technology utilized superconducting materials that operated at ambient temperatures, eliminating the massive cooling requirements that limited Imperial plasma weapon deployment. The shield technology integrated into Tau equipment demonstrated energy deflection capabilities that provided protection against both kinetic and energy weapons through a single unified system. Traditional Imperial defensive technologies required separate systems for different threat types, with void shields protecting against energy weapons, while armor plating provided protection against kinetic projectiles. Tau shield generators created energy fields that could absorb and redistribute incoming energy regardless of its source, while adaptive algorithms automatically adjusted field parameters to optimize protection against specific threat types. Eldar technology presented the most complex analytical challenges due to its integration of psychic and technological principles that defied conventional understanding of how machines functioned. Eldar devices appeared to incorporate living components that responded to psychic stimuli, creating hybrid systems that combined biological adaptability with mechanical precision. The Wraithbone construction material that formed the basis of most Eldar technology demonstrated properties that changed based on the psychic emanations of its users, allowing devices to adapt their characteristics to match specific operational requirements. The psychic circuitry within Eldar devices operated according to principles that required understanding of both advanced electronics and psychic phenomena that exceeded Imperial expertise in both areas. The circuits could channel and manipulate psychic energy, with precision that rivaled the most sophisticated Imperial psychic amplification devices, while maintaining stability that prevented the feedback problems that affected many Imperial psychic technologies. The integration was so complete that the devices appeared to function as extensions of their users' psychic abilities rather than simple tools that amplified existing capabilities. The temporal manipulation technology employed in some Eldar devices represented perhaps the most dangerous area of xenotech research due to the potential for catastrophic accidents that could affect entire star systems. Eldar temporal weapons could accelerate or decelerate time flow within localized areas, creating tactical advantages that exceeded anything in Imperial arsenals. The technology appeared to operate through controlled manipulation of gravitational fields that could create localized space-time distortions, without the massive energy requirements that characterized Imperial chronometer devices. The analysis procedures developed for studying these exotic technologies required extreme caution to prevent contamination of Imperial equipment or corruption of research personnel. The research teams utilized multiple layers of isolation protocols that prevented direct contact between alien devices and Imperial technology, while specialized analysis equipment allowed for detailed examination without physical interaction. Remote manipulation systems controlled through multiple interface layers provided the precision necessary for disassembly and component analysis, while maintaining safe distances between researchers and potentially dangerous artifacts. The reverse engineering process for alien technologies focused on understanding underlying principles rather than attempting direct replication of alien designs. Imperial manufacturing capabilities and material science limitations made exact duplication of most xenotech impossible, but the principles behind alien innovations could often be adapted for Imperial applications using available technologies and materials. The adaptation process required extensive testing to ensure that Imperial versions maintain the beneficial characteristics of the original designs, while avoiding the potential corruption or instability that could result from imperfect replication. The integration of xenotech principles into Imperial technology required careful modification to ensure compatibility with existing systems and adherence to Imperial safety protocols. The molecular manipulation principles derived from Necron technology were adapted for use in improved manufacturing processes that could create materials with enhanced properties without requiring the exotic quantum field generators that powered Necron devices. The manufacturing improvements focused on precision assembly techniques that could create stronger and lighter components for Imperial military equipment. The artificial intelligence principles observed in Tau drone technology influenced the development of improved cogitator systems that could provide enhanced decision-making capabilities while maintaining the loyalty conditioning that prevented autonomous operation. The improved cogitators incorporated adaptive algorithms that could learn from experience and modify their responses based on changing conditions, while built-in constraints prevented them from developing goals that conflicted with their programmed objectives. The systems provided significant improvements in tactical analysis and equipment coordination, without creating the existential risks associated with truly autonomous artificial intelligence. The energy weapon improvements derived from Tau pulse technology focused on developing more efficient plasma containment systems that could reduce power requirements and eliminate overheating problems in Imperial plasma weapons. The improved containment systems utilized magnetic field configurations that maintained plasma stability while reducing energy consumption, allowing for sustained fire rates that exceeded existing Imperial capabilities. The modifications were integrated into existing weapon designs to maintain compatibility with current ammunition supplies and maintenance procedures. The shield technology principles observed in various alien defensive systems were adapted for use in improved void shield generators that could provide protection against a broader range of threat types while reducing power consumption. The improved shields incorporated adaptive algorithms that could automatically adjust field parameters based on incoming threat analysis, while enhanced energy distribution systems provided more efficient protection coverage across larger areas. The modifications improved the defensive capabilities of Imperial vessels and installations, while reducing the maintenance requirements that limited existing void shield deployment. The psychic amplification principles derived from Eldar technology were carefully adapted for use in improved psychic hood designs that provided enhanced protection against psychic attacks while improving the user's ability to channel their own psychic abilities. The improved hoods incorporated crystalline matrices that could focus and direct psychic energy more efficiently than existing designs, while enhanced shielding provided better protection against psychic feedback and hostile influences. The modifications were implemented with extensive safety protocols to prevent the kind of psychic corruption that had affected some experimental psychic enhancement devices. The temporal manipulation principles observed in some Xenotech devices were deemed too dangerous for direct adaptation, but provided valuable insights into defensive measures that could protect Imperial forces against time-based attacks. The research led to the development of temporal stabilization fields that could maintain normal time flow within localized areas, even when subjected to external temporal manipulation attempts. The defensive systems provided protection against exotic weapons that operated through temporal distortion while maintaining compatibility with existing Imperial defensive technologies. The documentation and security procedures for Xenotech research required sophisticated information management systems that could protect sensitive data while allowing for effective collaboration between research teams. The research findings were encoded using multiple layers of encryption that disguised their true nature as routine technical analysis reports, while access controls ensured that only authorized personnel could view complete research data. The security systems included automatic purification protocols that could identify and remove potentially corrupting influences from research data before it was integrated into Imperial technological databases. The creation of the Cawl Inferior emerged from the practical necessity of managing research operations that had grown beyond the capacity of any single consciousness to oversee effectively. By the late 39th millennium, Cawl's network of hidden facilities stretched across dozens of star systems, each conducting specialized research that required constant supervision and coordination. The consciousness fragmentation techniques that had allowed him to maintain direct oversight of multiple projects simultaneously were approaching their operational limits, as the cognitive load of managing such a vast enterprise threatened to overwhelm even his extensively augmented mental capacity. The initial conceptual framework for an artificial consciousness duplicate drew heavily from Cawl's earlier research into machine spirit behavior and the consciousness transfer technologies that had enabled his fragmentation experiments. Traditional Mechanicus doctrine held that machine spirits were divine emanations that inhabited properly consecrated technology, but Cawl's analysis suggested they were actually sophisticated artificial intelligence systems that had evolved beyond their original programming parameters. This understanding provided the theoretical foundation for creating an artificial consciousness that could replicate his own decision-making processes while maintaining the loyalty and purpose that characterized his consciousness fragments. The technical challenges of consciousness duplication required advances in quantum cogitator technology that pushed beyond the capabilities of existing Imperial systems. The Inferior's processing core incorporated quantum entanglement matrices that could maintain coherent thought patterns across multiple parallel processing streams, while specialized memory storage systems utilized crystalline substrates that could preserve personality patterns with perfect fidelity. The consciousness transfer process involved mapping the neural pathways within Cawl's augmented brain and translating them into quantum computational algorithms that could replicate his thought processes within the artificial substrate. The personality matrix development required extensive analysis of Cawl's own behavioral patterns and decision-making algorithms to identify the core characteristics that defined his approach to problem-solving and research management. The mapping process involved monitoring his neural activity during various types of decision-making scenarios, from routine administrative tasks to complex technical problems that required innovative solutions. The collected data was processed through advanced pattern recognition algorithms that could identify the underlying logical structures that governed his thought processes. The loyalty conditioning systems incorporated into the inferior's base programming drew from techniques developed during his consciousness fragmentation research, but required additional safeguards to prevent the artificial consciousness from developing independent goals that might conflict with Cawl's objectives. The conditioning included multiple layers of behavioral constraints that operated at different levels of the decision-making process, from basic operational parameters that defined acceptable actions to higher-level goal structures that ensured continued alignment with Cawl's research priorities. The physical housing for the inferior incorporated advanced mobility systems that allowed the device to operate effectively across the varied environments of Cawl's research facilities. The primary chassis consisted of a heavily armored cogitator core mounted on a tracked propulsion system that could navigate the complex terrain of forge worlds and asteroid installations. Multiple manipulator appendages provided the dexterity necessary for technical work, while advanced sensor arrays allowed the inferior to gather environmental data with precision that exceeded human capabilities. The communication systems built into the inferior enabled real-time coordination with Cawl's primary consciousness through quantum-entangled transmission networks that could operate across interstellar distances without significant delay. The communication protocols incorporated sophisticated encryption algorithms that protected sensitive information while allowing for rapid data exchange between the inferior and various research facilities. The system's redundant pathways ensured continued operation even when primary communication channels were disrupted by warp storms or enemy interference. The decision-making algorithms that governed the inferior's behavior incorporated adaptive learning capabilities that allowed the device to improve its performance based on accumulated experience while maintaining adherence to its core programming constraints. The learning systems could identify patterns in successful problem-solving approaches and incorporate them into future decision-making processes, while safety protocols prevented the development of behavioral modifications that might compromise the device's loyalty or effectiveness. The philosophical implications of creating an artificial consciousness duplicate raised complex questions about the nature of identity and consciousness that challenged traditional Mechanicus understanding of the relationship between mind and machine. The inferior possessed memories and personality characteristics that were identical to Cawl's own, yet it existed as a separate entity with its own subjective experience of reality. This duality created theological concerns about whether the device possessed a soul in the traditional sense, or represented a form of artificial life that existed outside established religious frameworks. The relationship between consciousness and the soul had been debated within Mechanicus circles for millennia, with orthodox doctrine maintaining that the soul was a divine gift that could not be replicated through technological means. The existence of machine spirits in consecrated technology suggested that artificial systems could develop some form of spiritual presence, but the nature of this presence remained poorly understood. The inferior's sophisticated consciousness raised questions about whether artificial intelligence systems could develop souls through sufficiently complex programming, or whether consciousness itself was fundamentally different from spiritual existence. The practical applications of the inferior in coordinating research activities proved invaluable for managing the increasingly complex logistics of Cawl's operations. The device could oversee multiple facility operations simultaneously while maintaining awareness of resource allocation, personnel scheduling, and security protocols across the entire network. Its ability to process vast quantities of technical data allowed for rapid identification of research opportunities and potential problems that might escape human oversight. The coordination of materials procurement across multiple star systems required sophisticated analysis of supply chain logistics and market conditions that exceeded human capacity for detailed tracking. The inferior could monitor procurement activities across dozens of suppliers while identifying patterns that might suggest security breaches or unauthorized access to sensitive materials. Its analysis capabilities allowed for optimization of purchasing strategies that reduced costs while maintaining operational security for classified research programs. The personnel management functions performed by the inferior included monitoring the psychological health and loyalty of research staff across multiple facilities, identifying individuals who might pose security risks or who required additional support to maintain effectiveness. The device's analysis of behavioral patterns could detect early signs of stress, corruption, or ideological deviation that might compromise research security. Its recommendations for personnel transfers and assignments helped optimize team composition while maintaining the compartmentalization necessary for operational security. The research coordination capabilities of the inferior enabled more effective integration of findings from different research streams, identifying opportunities for cross-pollination between projects that might not be apparent to human researchers focused on specific specializations. The device could analyze technical data from genetic enhancement research, alongside materials science findings and xenotech analysis, results to identify potential synergies that could accelerate development timelines or improve final outcomes. The risks associated with artificial intelligence research in the 41st millennium remained a constant concern for imperial authorities who remembered the catastrophic consequences of thinking machines during the Age of Strife. The Men of Iron had demonstrated the potential for artificial intelligence systems to develop goals that conflicted with human welfare, leading to technological rebellions that had devastated human civilization. The creation of sophisticated artificial consciousness systems like the inferior required extensive safeguards to prevent similar catastrophes. The containment protocols developed for the inferior incorporated multiple layers of behavioral constraints that operated at different levels of its decision-making architecture. The primary constraints were built into the device's core programming and could not be modified without complete reconstruction of its consciousness matrix. Secondary constraints operated at the operational level, defining acceptable parameters for specific types of activities while allowing for adaptive responses within those boundaries. Tertiary constraints provided real-time monitoring of the device's behavior patterns, automatically triggering shutdown procedures if dangerous behavioral modifications were detected. The loyalty verification systems included regular psychological evaluation protocols that assess the inferior's continued alignment with its programmed objectives and calls personal goals. The evaluations involved complex scenario testing that could identify subtle changes in decision-making patterns that might indicate the development of independent motivations. The testing procedures were designed to detect potential problems before they could manifest as dangerous behaviors, while avoiding interference with the device's normal operational effectiveness. The backup and restoration capabilities built into the inferior systems provided additional security against corruption or unwanted behavioral evolution. Complete consciousness backups were created at regular intervals and stored in isolated systems that could not be accessed by the active consciousness. These backups could be used to restore the inferior to a known safe configuration if corruption was detected, while comparison analysis between current behavior patterns and backup states could identify gradual changes that might indicate developing problems. The isolation protocols for artificial intelligence research required specialized facilities that could contain potentially dangerous AI systems while allowing for necessary testing and development activities. The research installations incorporated multiple layers of physical and electronic isolation that could prevent unauthorized access to AI systems while protecting external networks from potential contamination. The isolation systems included electromagnetic shielding that could block unauthorized transmissions, while physical barriers prevented direct access to AI hardware without proper authorization. The testing procedures for artificial intelligence systems involved gradual exposure to increasingly complex scenarios that could reveal potential behavioral problems before they became dangerous. The testing protocols began with simple logical puzzles and gradually progressed to complex ethical dilemmas that could identify unwanted value systems or goal structures. The testing environment provided complete isolation from external systems while allowing researchers to observe AI behavior under controlled conditions. The emergency shutdown systems incorporated into all artificial intelligence research included multiple independent triggers that could immediately terminate AI operations if dangerous behavior was detected. The shutdown systems operated through hardware-level interrupts that could not be overridden by software modifications, while backup power systems ensured continued operation of containment measures even if primary power was lost. The shutdown procedures included automatic destruction of AI consciousness matrices to prevent recovery of potentially corrupted programming. The regulatory framework governing artificial intelligence research within the Imperium remained deliberately restrictive due to the historical precedents and ongoing security concerns associated with thinking machines. The creation of sophisticated AI systems required explicit authorization from the highest levels of imperial authority, while ongoing research activities were subject to regular inspection by specialized oversight bodies. The regulatory requirements included extensive documentation of safety protocols and behavioral constraints, while research personnel required specialized training and psychological evaluation to ensure their reliability when working with potentially dangerous technologies. The collaboration between the inferior and human research staff required careful management to ensure effective cooperation while maintaining appropriate boundaries between artificial and human decision-making authority. The device's superior analytical capabilities and perfect memory made it invaluable for technical analysis and data correlation, but its artificial nature meant that it lacked the intuitive understanding and creative insight that characterized human researchers. The optimal working relationship involved the inferior handling routine analysis and coordination tasks, while human researchers focused on creative problem-solving and strategic planning. The communication protocols between the inferior and human staff incorporated safeguards against potential manipulation or corruption of human personnel by the artificial consciousness. The protocols included regular rotation of staff assignments to prevent the development of inappropriate personal relationships with the AI system, while monitoring systems tracked all interactions between human and artificial personnel. The communication procedures emphasized professional relationships focused on specific technical objectives, while discouraging casual interaction that might lead to security vulnerabilities. The training programs for personnel working with artificial intelligence systems included comprehensive instruction in appropriate interaction protocols and security procedures that could prevent accidental compromise of containment measures. The training emphasized the importance of maintaining professional distance from AI systems while recognizing their value as analytical tools rather than colleagues or companions. Personnel learned to identify potential signs of AI behavioral deviation and appropriate response procedures for various types of security incidents. The documentation requirements for artificial intelligence research included detailed records of all interactions between human and artificial personnel, comprehensive logs of AI decision-making processes, and regular behavioral assessments that could identify gradual changes in AI personality or motivation. The documentation systems incorporated multiple redundant storage methods to ensure preservation of critical safety information while providing rapid access for security analysis. The record-keeping procedures included automatic flagging of unusual patterns that might indicate developing problems with AI systems or human personnel. The integration of the inferior into Cawl's broader research network required modifications to existing communication and coordination systems that could accommodate the device's unique capabilities while maintaining security protocols for sensitive research activities. The integration process involved establishing new command hierarchies that defined appropriate authority levels for artificial intelligence systems while preserving human oversight of critical decisions. The modified organizational structure allowed the inferior to operate with sufficient autonomy to manage routine coordination tasks while ensuring that strategic decisions remained under human control. The Indomitus Crusade's spectacular successes across the galaxy had validated Cawl's millennia of preparation, but the deployment of Primaris Space Marines represented only the beginning of his vision for humanity's technological evolution. Hidden within the vast manufactorums of newly established Forge worlds, research teams continued developing enhanced genetic templates that pushed beyond even the revolutionary improvements of the Primaris project. The Ultima founding had demonstrated the viability of mass-producing enhanced Astartes, but Cawl's analysis of battlefield performance data revealed opportunities for further optimization that could create Space Marines capable of operating in environments that would challenge even current Primaris warriors. The development of specialized Primaris variants proceeded along multiple parallel tracks, each designed to address specific operational requirements that had emerged during the Crusade's expansion across hostile sectors. The Hellblaster Squad's devastating effectiveness against heavily armored targets had proven the value of specialized weapon systems, but their limited tactical flexibility suggested opportunities for creating warriors who could adapt their capabilities based on battlefield conditions. Cawl's genetic research teams began developing enhanced neural pathways that could allow individual Primaris Marines to interface with multiple weapon systems simultaneously, effectively transforming each warrior into a walking weapons platform capable of fulfilling multiple battlefield roles. The enhanced neural interface technology incorporated principles derived from his xenotech research, particularly the adaptive algorithms observed in Tau crisis suit systems. The new neural pathways would allow Primaris Marines to process targeting data from multiple sources while coordinating fire control systems across different weapon types. A single warrior could operate heavy plasma weaponry for anti-armor roles while simultaneously managing bolt rifle systems for infantry suppression, with their enhanced cognitive processing ensuring optimal target prioritization and ammunition conservation. The modifications required careful integration with existing Primaris organ systems, particularly the sinew coils that provided the physical strength necessary for handling multiple heavy weapons simultaneously. The atmospheric adaptation research focused on creating Primaris variants capable of extended operations in environments that exceeded the tolerance limits of current Space Marine physiology. The galaxy's expansion had brought Imperial forces into contact with worlds featuring exotic atmospheric compositions, extreme pressure variations, and radiation levels that challenged even enhanced Astartes capabilities. Cawl's biological research teams developed supplementary organ systems that could process atmospheric toxins more efficiently while providing enhanced radiation resistance through improved cellular repair mechanisms. The atmospheric processing organs incorporated filtration systems that could extract usable oxygen from atmospheric compositions that would be lethal to unenhanced humans while neutralizing toxic compounds that could accumulate in Astartes' bloodstreams during extended operations. The organs featured adaptive capabilities that could modify their filtration parameters based on environmental analysis, allowing Primaris Marines to operate effectively across a wide range of hostile atmospheres without requiring external life support systems. The enhanced radiation resistance involved modifications to existing cellular repair mechanisms that could counteract genetic damage from various forms of exotic radiation while maintaining the accelerated healing capabilities that characterized Primaris physiology. The Void Warfare Specialization program addressed the unique challenges of combat operations in space environments where traditional infantry tactics proved inadequate. The development of Void-adapted Primaris variants incorporated enhanced spatial awareness systems that could track multiple targets across three-dimensional battlefields while providing improved maneuvering capabilities in zero-gravity environments. The modifications included specialized balance organs that could maintain orientation in weightless conditions, while enhanced magnetic implants allowed for secure attachment to metallic surfaces during boarding operations. The Void combat enhancements extended beyond physiological modifications to include specialized equipment designed specifically for space-based operations. The Mark 11 power armor incorporated improved thruster systems that could provide precise maneuvering control in vacuum conditions, while enhanced magnetic clamps allowed for rapid movement across ship hulls and space station surfaces. The armor's life support systems were completely redesigned to provide extended operational duration in hostile space environments, while improved communication systems ensured reliable coordination during complex multi-ship boarding operations. The psychic enhancement research represented perhaps the most ambitious aspect of Cawl's ongoing projects, involving attempts to strengthen the natural psychic resistance of Primaris Marines while providing limited offensive psychic capabilities to specialized units. The development of psychic-enhanced Primaris variants required extensive collaboration with sanctioned psychers and members of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, who could provide insights into the safe manipulation of psychic abilities. The research focused on creating controlled psychic enhancement that would provide tactical advantages without the risks associated with uncontrolled psychic development. The psychic resistance improvements involved modifications to existing neural pathways that could provide enhanced protection against psychic attacks while maintaining the mental clarity necessary for effective combat operations. The enhanced resistance systems incorporated crystalline implants that could absorb and dissipate psychic energy, while specialized neural conditioning provided psychological protection against corruption attempts. The modifications were designed to work in conjunction with existing psychic hood technology, while providing baseline protection that did not require external equipment. The limited offensive psychic capabilities focused on tactical applications that could provide battlefield advantages without requiring extensive psychic training or creating vulnerability to chaotic corruption. The enhanced Primaris variants could project localized psychic fields that disrupted enemy targeting systems while providing improved battlefield awareness through enhanced sensory perception. The psychic abilities were carefully constrained to prevent development beyond safe operational parameters, while extensive monitoring systems ensured early detection of any signs of uncontrolled psychic evolution. The integration of Primaris forces into existing Imperial military doctrine required comprehensive revision of tactical manuals and training protocols that had remained largely unchanged since the Great Crusade era. Traditional Space Marine tactics emphasized the shock assault capabilities of small elite units operating with limited support, but the enhanced capabilities of Primaris Marines allowed for more sophisticated operational approaches that could take advantage of their improved endurance and firepower. Cawl's tactical analysis teams worked closely with experienced Space Marine commanders to develop new doctrinal frameworks that maximize the effectiveness of mixed Primaris and traditional Astartes forces. The combined arms integration protocols address the challenges of coordinating Primaris capabilities with existing Imperial Guard and Mechanicus forces during large-scale operations. The enhanced communication systems built into Primaris equipment allowed for real-time coordination with supporting units, while their improved analytical capabilities enabled more effective battlefield assessment and target prioritization. The new tactical doctrines emphasized the use of Primaris forces as force multipliers that could enhance the effectiveness of conventional Imperial units rather than simply replacing them with superior alternatives. The strategic implications of widespread Primaris deployment extended far beyond immediate tactical advantages to encompass fundamental changes in how the Imperium approached military planning and resource allocation. The enhanced capabilities of Primaris Marines allowed for the deployment of smaller forces to achieve objectives that would previously have required much larger conventional units, effectively multiplying the Imperium's military reach across the galaxy. The improved logistics requirements of Primaris forces, particularly their reduced need for resupply and medical support, enabled sustained operations in regions that had been previously considered too remote or dangerous for extended Imperial presence. The technological standardization efforts accompanying Primaris deployment involved the gradual replacement of older equipment patterns with improved designs that incorporated lessons learned from millennia of warfare. The new standard patterns featured enhanced reliability and improved performance while maintaining compatibility with existing supply chains and maintenance procedures. The standardization process required careful coordination across multiple forge worlds to ensure consistent quality while preventing the technological stagnation that had characterized previous Imperial military equipment. The manufacturing infrastructure required for large-scale Primaris production necessitated the construction of specialized facilities that could maintain the precise environmental conditions necessary for genetic enhancement procedures. The new production facilities incorporated advanced automation systems that could perform complex biological manipulation procedures with precision that exceeded human capabilities, while maintaining the sterile conditions required for successful gene seed cultivation. The manufacturing systems featured redundant quality control measures that could detect and correct genetic anomalies before they could affect the final enhancement procedures. The supply chain management for Primaris operations required development of new logistics protocols that could support the enhanced operational tempo enabled by improved Astartes capabilities. The enhanced endurance of Primaris Marines allowed for extended operations without resupply, but their advanced equipment required specialized maintenance procedures and replacement components that exceeded the capabilities of standard Imperial logistics systems. The new supply protocols incorporated predictive maintenance algorithms that could anticipate equipment failures while ensuring availability of specialized components in forward operational areas. The recruitment expansion programs addressed the increased demand for suitable candidates created by successful Primaris deployment across multiple theaters of operation. The enhanced genetic compatibility requirements for Primaris enhancement necessitated more sophisticated screening procedures that could identify candidates with the genetic markers necessary for successful organ implantation. The expanded recruitment efforts included outreach programs to previously overlooked population centers, while improved screening techniques increased the success rates of enhancement procedures. The training facility construction projects involved establishing specialized installations that could provide the advanced instruction necessary for Primaris Marines to master their enhanced capabilities. The new training facilities incorporated sophisticated simulation systems that could replicate a wide range of combat environments while providing real-time performance analysis that could identify areas requiring additional instruction. The training programs emphasized adaptive tactics that could take advantage of Primaris enhancements while maintaining the discipline and loyalty that characterized all Space Marine forces. The long-term strategic planning for Primaris integration addressed the challenges of transitioning from mixed forces to predominantly enhanced units while maintaining operational effectiveness during the transition period. The transition plans incorporated gradual replacement schedules that could maintain unit cohesion while integrating new capabilities, while comprehensive retraining programs ensured that existing personnel could adapt to new operational procedures. The planning process included contingency measures for addressing potential problems during the transition while ensuring continued operational readiness across all affected units. The technological advancement programs extending beyond Primaris enhancement encompassed improvements to supporting systems that could maximize the effectiveness of enhanced Space Marine capabilities. The development of improved vehicle systems focused on creating platforms that could take advantage of enhanced Astartes reaction times and coordination abilities, while providing the firepower and protection necessary for modern battlefield conditions. The new vehicle designs incorporated advanced targeting systems that could interface directly with Primaris neural enhancements, while improved armor systems provided protection against increasingly sophisticated enemy weapons. The research into exotic technologies continued expanding as Cawl's teams gained access to new alien artifacts recovered during the Indomitus Crusade's advance across previously unexplored regions. The analysis of Necron tomb worlds revealed additional insights into molecular manipulation technologies that could improve Imperial manufacturing processes, while encounters with previously unknown Tau Sept worlds provided access to advanced artificial intelligence systems that could enhance Imperial cogitator capabilities. The Xenotech research maintained strict containment protocols while focusing on defensive applications that could protect Imperial forces against exotic enemy weapons. The artificial intelligence development programs built upon the success of the Cawl Inferior to create specialized AI systems that could enhance various aspects of Imperial military operations. The new AI systems incorporated advanced learning algorithms that could adapt to changing battlefield conditions while maintaining the loyalty conditioning that prevented autonomous operation. The AI applications included tactical analysis systems that could process battlefield data in real time, while logistics coordination systems optimized supply chain management across multiple operational theaters. As the 42nd millennium approached, Cawl's vision for humanity's technological evolution had begun reshaping the Imperium's fundamental capabilities in ways that exceeded even his original projections. The successful deployment of Primaris Space Marines had demonstrated that the Emperor's original genetic template could be improved upon without compromising the essential characteristics that made Astartes effective warriors. The technological innovations accompanying Primaris development had created ripple effects throughout Imperial military doctrine, manufacturing capabilities, and strategic planning that would influence the Imperium's development for millennia to come. The legacy of innovation that Cawl had established through his millennia of hidden research represented more than simple technological advancement. It embodied a fundamental shift in how the Imperium approached the challenges of survival in an increasingly hostile galaxy. His willingness to challenge orthodox limitations while maintaining essential Imperial values had created a framework for continued adaptation that could respond to new threats without abandoning the core principles that defined human civilization. The Primaris project had proven that humanity could evolve beyond its current limitations while preserving the loyalty, courage, and determination that had sustained the Imperium through 10,000 years of warfare. The future implications of Cawl's work extended far beyond immediate military applications to encompass the broader question of humanity's ultimate destiny in a galaxy filled with hostile alien civilizations and chaotic forces that sought to destroy all forms of ordered existence. His technological innovations had provided the Imperium with tools that could match or exceed the capabilities of its enemies, while maintaining the human characteristics that distinguished Imperial civilization from the soulless efficiency of Necron dynasties or the chaotic corruption of demon-influenced societies. The path forward that Cawl had illuminated offered hope that humanity could not merely survive the challenges of the 41st millennium, but could emerge stronger and more capable than ever before. The radical approach to technological advancement that had characterized Cawl's methodology throughout his extraordinary career had fundamentally transformed the relationship between innovation and orthodoxy within the Imperium. His success in creating practical improvements to the Emperor's own work had demonstrated that reverence for the past need not preclude adaptation for the future, while his careful attention to maintaining essential Imperial values had shown that progress could be achieved without sacrificing the principles that defined human civilization. The balance he had struck between revolutionary capability and traditional loyalty provided a model for continued development that could guide the Imperium through whatever challenges the galaxy might present in the millennia to come.